And we are live. What's up, everybody? It's time to start Redundancy once again. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be a great stream. It's gonna be a great stream today. Let me just double check. A good day to you as well. I'm going to double check to make sure that I'm you know, it's working. Cool. Yo-ho-ho! What's up? Hope you guys like the new microphone. I haven't done a Mushoku Tensei stream with it yet, so some of you may be new with this new camera. Leslie Toasty, what's up? Alright. 8 viewers already, dude. Sick. And when I was previewing this, when I was looking at the Redundancy book earlier yesterday, I'll not say for a long time since I'm anime only. Just came to say hi and stay around for a while. All right. There used to be a bunch of like blank boxes in the Redundancy EPUB file, but now I looked and they were just a bunch of image files that just weren't rendering for some reason, so I deleted all of them. I went through and deleted all of those blank boxes, well, at least for this beginning part. I think that's probably all I'm gonna be reading today anyway, so yeah. And I don't expect this stream to go longer than 3.5 hours, to be honest. And as a reminder for those of you who were not here last stream that I streamed yesterday, by the way, if you want to watch that, I decided to not privatize that. It's going to be in my playlist menu. Go to playlist, go to chill streams, it'll be there if you want to watch it. There I did a preview of my next video. We decided to prioritize Redundancy streams. And then we also decided to prioritize me covering Chainsaw Man once that comes out. So yes, I will be covering Chainsaw Man with a few streams after each episode comes out. I'll be talking about it. I don't expect it to go longer than an hour or so, but yeah. There'll be some days where there's not much to talk about the episode, like any anime, and there'll be some times where I won't be talking at all. And sometimes there will be shit happening, and then you'll be sure to get my reaction out of it. Well, it's not a reaction stream. It's mainly just a review. Have you read the manga for Chainsaw Man? No. No, I have not. I've not read any of that manga's works. I'm going into this show completely blind. I'm sure that'd be enjoyable for some of you. So, we also made a playlist, a music playlist, for the beginning of these streams. We're not going to be playing it during the readings, so don't worry about that. But here we are. So, alright, for some of you anime onlys, I'm going to be showing some of the text of the... Actually, I don't think there'll be anything here, so... Yeah. First part's Norn's marriage. I don't think the fact that she gets married is a spoiler, but... whatever. Yeah, so there used to be a bunch of blank boxes. This was the only image that actually rendered somewhat. Everything else was just no. I think the issue was that they were all PNG files, and the transparent parts just came out black. And if you had black text on a black background, you can't see shit. So I think that's what happened. It was just weird shit. That's my cue. Have a good reading session, everyone. See you later, Weird Yoda. Music's too high. gotcha. I gotcha, man. There you go. There you go. All right. So we have how many people do we have on the stream actually? 11. I think that's my cue to start. All right. Well, we ended off the last chapter with the last volume with the best chapter in the entire series, or one of the best chapters in the entire series, and it had nothing to do with Rudius almost at all. So I'm excited to see how this turns out. I know this is mainly a slice of life volume. It's basically just a slice of life epilogue. We get into lore heavy stuff later with Old Dragon's Tale, I assume, but this thing is extremely long. I don't expect to go through the entire redundancy volume in just this stream alone. So, yeah. Let's start.
Itara Honki Desu. Side stories. Redundancy chapter. Author, Chapter 1. Norn's marriage, first part. Part 1. It's been several months since the conclusion of the Battle of the Bihyrule Kingdom. Since then, Hitagami has stayed silent, and the days went by without any enemy presence. That said, what I have to do hasn't changed. To prepare for Laplace's revival in 80 years, I've been silently moving around, making various arrangements. But lately, I've been home a lot. Because both Ares and Roxy got pregnant at the same time. It has to be because I let loose after Jitsu was defeated. And my disorderly daily life was the result.
Not
of course,
Sylphy,
the
big
result
Sag.
itself is something joyous. But during pregnancy, their fates are weakened and they are easier targets for Hitagami. I would also like to spend as much time as possible with my wives during their pregnancy. And so, for the first time in a while, family time has continued. By organizing the information gathered by the mercenary groups established in various places, regular meetings were held where Orsted went through the information to determine our future course of action. On one of those days. On that day, together with Orsted, we were going over the information on the next country that I would be visiting. PAGE 3580. The next king of that country was still young, but he was already a remarkable figure, and I was supposed to approach him with the intention of taking advantage of him. Orsted didn't say what would cause the next king to fall, he kept silent. He probably has some reason. Is the person that would cause that king's fall not in the current loop? Originally, we were supposed to meet him later on. At this point, is there any surefire way to topple him?
This is the first chapter of redundancy.
Orsted said he'd look at his memo relating to him and think of a method. And that was when it happened. Let Norn get married. What? Sudden. Orsted suddenly broke the silence by saying something insane. I, who am normally very careful about my words around Orsted, almost unintentionally leaked out the line, "The hell you saying all of a sudden?" Right now, we were thinking about how we would cause this remarkable figure to fall. There was no logical link at all. Is what I thought. But no, maybe there wasn't absolutely no link. There was one possible answer. A political marriage. Going by the flow of the conversation, to cause the remarkable figure to fall. That's what we would do. Not as a political maneuver, I was thinking about the future. PAGE 4580. Nevertheless, it is a painful topic.
Dude.
Orsted had decided that I would move towards this man with the intention of having him win her heart. Well, that's fine for now. It's not as if I don't have confidence in this person. I just don't believe that this remarkable man of lineage could win her heart. The man is a womanizer on the level of Paul. If we can't find a woman to allot to him, I would have to consent to Orsted's suggestion. That said, Norn is out of the question. Norn will eventually get married. But, Paul was a peerless womanizer, handing Norn over to the same kind of man is no good. Norn's partner would need to be someone more sincere. And somebody that I can accept. I won't hand Norn over to some useless nobody. I wouldn't be able to face Paul. No matter how noble their objective, I will not forgive those who use and discard their family. Not like that. Then what did you mean? I am indebted to Norn Grare's child. Debt? So it's not Norn that you are interested in, but her child, whom you have business with. It's not business. In this loop, it's not all that important. It was not a very pertinent conversation. Not being able to read Orsted's true intentions was not a new thing. But up until now, I've at least been able to determine what he was trying to do. Groundwork for the future. PAGE 5580. Norn's child isn't important, but because in a previous loop he/she was useful, he would like to set the groundwork. I understand. I stood up. He looked up at me while sitting. He's not currently wearing his helmet. His face is scary as always, but I'm sure right now it's even more frightening. If it must be so, by all means, would it be permissible to meet at noon in the forest to the north of here in 3 days' time? Norn, rest easy. I will protect your chastity. Even if the opponent is Orsted, I will not pull back a single step. So Paul, lend me your strength. I ask you for the power to overcome this mighty enemy and return home alive. Wait. You are misunderstanding something. Misunderstanding. During the countless 200 years I have repeated, I have become attached to certain persons' existences. Norn Grare's child is one such existence. She has helped me on countless occasions, I am indebted to her. Therefore, if it is possible, I would like to meet her in this lifetime. Because as it is, it will not happen. It's true that there's no male presence around Norn. That didn't change even after her graduation. She has her family, but she isn't jobless. On the recommendation of the school, she entered the Magic Guild and is now working at the main office. She is what you would call an office lady. PAGE 6580. There are a considerable number of men in the Magic Guild. But there is no male presence around Norn. She doesn't go out on her days off and spends all her time at home
I could
helping out by
change
looking after the kids or doing housework.
PAGE stuff.
Even during her school days, she had no one special that she associated with. I thought Norn would eventually, but, honestly, if it goes on this way, it seems like she might spend her whole life without getting married. In this world, for those of certain positions, arranged marriages are a common practice. It may be half-hearted, but I am technically a man of notable position with both influence and connections. With that being the case, this development isn't all that
now
odd.
my ear's ringing.
No, a child isn't something you can make on your own. The same person couldn't be born no matter who the partner is. The king of a country would have a high enough standing. But I do not intend to acknowledge it. Until I see it with my own eyes, and confirm what kind of person they are. That aside, was this remarkable figure originally Norn's partner? While I was thinking that, Orsted scrunched his face up in confusion and raised his eyebrows. As always, his face is scary. But I remember this face, it's the hell you saying all of a sudden face. He opened his mouth and his suppressed eyebrows moved. No. Sorry. That has nothing to do with this. PAGE 7580. This is a different story. A different story. Then it's that. It's not about conquering the next kingdom. You were simply saying to let Norn get married at the time of her choosing. That's how it is. Right. I get it now, that makes sense. Orsted-sama. Yes. When you are changing the subject of the conversation, please say something along the lines of I'm changing the subject of the conversation. Or that aside, it would be good for you to preface such conversations like this. Right. I'll be more careful next time.
I forgot to delete
After putting
those
everything
blocks.
back in place, I sat back down.
Those cursed
PAGE
blocks.
580.
Curse you,
Part
page
2.
page
After
8.
I pulled myself together, the conversation continued. So, just who was Norn's partner? Norn married this person each and every time, didn't she? Yes, as far as I know, Norn's partner is predetermined. Norn's fated partner. What a lucky guy. Simply by existing, to have the good fortune of being able to marry Norn. If he spends his days lazing around, I'll kidnap him and fix it.
I don't know how I feel
Spartan
about
training.
that. I don't know how I feel about that.
I'll force it into him. Until his body can say nothing but, yes, absolutely,
read ahead.
and thank you very much. Cheating will not be tolerated. The condition will be, let's see. If he would like to become Norn's partner, he would at least have to be able to stay conscious after taking a punch from Eris. It's Ruijerd Superdia.
I don't know how I feel about that.
I remembered the face of the bald
I
warrior who
really
lived for over
don't.
500 years. No, he's not bald anymore. He is a respectable man with splendid green hair. Their child is the last warrior of the Superd race. Continuing the will of Ruijerd after he had fallen to the plague, reclaiming the Superd's honor by joining the human side in the fight against Laplace and delivering the final blow. It was a huge burden that anybody would recognize. But this time around, the Superd race remains in large numbers. PAGE 9580. That child will most likely not have to be burdened with this duty. While I was still arranging my thoughts, Orsted finished his explanation. He was probably remembering that child's whole life. If she defeated Laplace, that means that she most likely cooperated with Orsted. Which means, right, for Orsted to make this kind of proposal, I do understand it. But, well, this time is different. I'm here, there was also the teleport incident. I don't know how Ruijerd and Norn got to know each other in the other loops, but there is no mistake that this is a love story that Orsted is well aware of. If I were to suddenly approach Norn with talks of marriage, she would most likely just turn me down. After all, he's 500 years old. Ruijerd would probably be bewildered too. Having Ruijerd as a relative.
Okay. How old is she right now? How old? Is she like 15 or some shit? Because if so, like, bro, Ruijerd, no, don't, early 20s. Okay. Thank goodness. But this is still kind of sus, not gonna lie. This guy is freaking like, oh my gosh. Okay. It's like someone who's like, it's like a 20-year-old marrying a freaking 50-year-old. Like I safe but sus. Yeah, that's basically it. And other leaps, they meet later and later. I think I can't even.
Definitely wouldn't be a bad thing.
I can't even.
But this definitely isn't something for me to decide. I think that Norn's feeling are the most important.
It's worse than Rudius and Roxy. Actually, no.
Said that and nodded in agreement.
I wouldn't say that.
10580. Part 3. After that, I had Orsted tell me Norn's story from the previous loops.
I guess Rudius and Roxy was worse because Rudius was creepy towards Roxy from the very beginning. So
she formed a party with those of similar interests
and
journeyed towards the northern continent. Although neither her swordsmanship nor her magic were, by any means, outstanding. By adventurer standards, she was at best a B grade. And so, during a certain request, her party was annihilated by a demonic creature. Norn was also on the verge of death. What appeared then was our Ruijerd. He beat down the approaching demonic creature and freed Norn from her predicament. And to Norn, Ruijerd was love at first sight. And from then on, she accompanied Ruijerd on his journey to find the supered race, and slowly began her attack.
Okay.
Apparently Ruijerd ignored her advances at first, but after he discovered that the supered...
Nicholas, you're going hard copium here, saying that she hinted that she liked older men. Yeah, but not hundreds of years older. Like chill. All right, chill. Rudy and Roxy are the same age though. Like, no, she's like what? 80? She's like 50. You're talking about his fucking like past life self. Okay. Okay.
race had been wiped out by a plague.
Weird.
He fell into despair. Norn devoted herself to comforting the anguished Ruijerd. He was moved
He's
by her
talking
affection,
about like
and the two got
past
married.
life, accounting for his past life as well.
in a
That's
corner
not
of
how
the
this shit
High Highland
works.
And during that time, while Norn was pregnant with their child, Ruijerd fell sick with the same illness that struck the supered race and died. Norn, now alone, took upon herself the responsibility of raising the child, and eventually her life came to an end. I thought it sounded like a lonely end, but according to Orsted, Norn looked satisfied on her deathbed. It was an unexpected and unlikely love story, but with the two of them, nothing would be strange. PAGE 11580. That said, I wonder how Norn and Ruijerd would get together without such a chain of events. Would Norn be happy, being paired with somebody she didn't love? Would Ruijerd accept? Well, there's no point to me toiling over it alone. What's important are Norn's feelings. There may be no male presence around Norn, but she is at that age. She's got to have a man or two she likes, having been in a relationship or two wouldn't be odd. No, it may just be that I don't know, she may already have herself a man. And one day, all of a sudden, she might bring a man to the house and he would ask me, "Father-in-law, please give your daughter to me." And then I would reply, "Who's this father-in-law?" And then, "I am brother-in-law." I got sidetracked. Anyhow, I must first hear Norn's feelings. At these times, I get the feeling that this isn't something I should hear. I also don't think it's something that Norn would tell me. A woman would be better. But Aisha is no good. I feel like if Aisha hears this it'll turn into something bad.
Yeah.
Which means, it would have to be Sylphy or maybe Roxy. Norn seems to respect Roxy in particular. Roxy would be good. On the subject of admiration, Eris would also be good. Eris had been teaching Norn the sword for quite a while. PAGE 12580. Ever since Norn graduated, she's been going jogging and doing practice swings with Eris every morning.
Would Norn be good?
It's clear to see that Norn looks up to her.
Would Norn?
But with Eris's commando personality, telling her to ask
would
indirectly
Eris
would be impossible.
be good to tell?
It would have to be Roxy. No wait, someone with a high
Oh
skill
wait,
level at
yeah,
asking
the
indirectly would be
Sylphy.
Sylphy.
Shit, I forgot.
She looks up to Sylphy in a slightly different sense than admiration, but
I'm pausing this. I am changing this. Cause screw Sylphy. Alright? Give me a second here. I'm going to fix this. I will fix this. Mark my words. I will fix this. In the meantime, just listen to Floral Fury in the meantime, I guess. I don't know. You disrespect Best Girl? I'm saying that Eris, like, could she keep her mouth shut? That's all I'm saying. Okay, find Sylphy and replace it with Silphy. Because that's how they want it to. 21 instances here. 33 instances here. 10 instances here. Jeez. 68. What the fuck? 11. She doesn't get a highlight in that one. 13. Jeez, she's getting cucked. 41. Respectable. Alright. And then, since I'm already here, I'm going to get rid of the page stuff. "72 instances of page." Fucking hell. This music fits with what I'm doing right now. It's just, it's obnoxious. There's so many. Alright. Save that, please. Thank you. Alright. Nice, I got it. We got it. Let's go. We'll start right where
She's got to have a man,
Sylphy's
which means
mentioned.
it would have to be Sylphy or maybe Roxy. Norn seems to respect Roxy in particular. Roxy would be good.
Let's go.
On the subject of admiration, Eris would also be good. Eris had been teaching Norn the sword for quite a while. Page 12580. Ever since Norn graduated, she's been going jogging and doing practice swings with Eris every morning. It's clear to see that Norn looks up to her. But with Eris's commando personality, telling her to ask indirectly would be impossible. It would have to be Roxy. No wait, someone with a high skill level at asking indirectly would be Sylphy. She looks up to Sylphy in a slightly different sense than admiration, but at the very least, she does recognize that she's the most important member of the household. No, I should probably discuss it with all three present. 4 with me included, and we can decide who would be most suited. It would be good to hear Sylphy and Roxy's opinions. Wait, not just the 3 of them, would it be better to bring Lilia and Zenith in on it too? I was sitting on the living room sofa, thinking about it by myself when into my field of vision jumped a single woman. Ah. It's Norn. Norn walked into the living room. Nii-san, I'm home. Welcome back. When you take a good look, all said, Norn is actually quite the beauty. She looks a lot like Zenith when she was young. Her breasts are large and she's got silky blonde hair. Even at school she was popular. Page 13580. What is it? No. Ah, Norn, you want some tea? I'll have some. I took a cup from the table and poured out some black tea and handed it to her. Norn took the cup and looked puzzled. It's cold now. Even though I just had Lilia brew it. I thought that and touched the teapot, and it was indeed cold. The cup in my hand was also cold. I wonder what happened. Are we under some kind of attack? Norn, that reminds me, don't you have work today? I just got home from there now. I took a look out the window and it was already evening. After I returned from my meeting with Worsted and had Lilia brew me some tea, it was early afternoon,
you spaced
which means
out.
that around 2 hours have passed.
Jeez.
Sorry, it seems I spaced out. Please save the spacing out for when you're older. I'll go make some fresh tea. You wait here. Is no one else here? Until a little while ago, Sylphy and Eris were still here. And Roxy should also be home around this time. I walked past Sylphy-Nisan and Eris-Nisan on my way home, they were taking the kids for a walk. Lilia-san was shopping. Page 14580. Aisha. I don't know. Wouldn't she probably still be with the mercenary group? As she said that, Norn walked into the kitchen with the teapot. But is that right? Nobody else is here. It's just Norn and I. Couldn't this be called some kind of perfect situation? Avoid a roundabout wordy conversation and tell her to her face. And if that should fail, I'll try something else. That would be the option most faithful to Norn. Talking to her only after I had removed all the obstacles, Norn wouldn't like that. After all, it's her that's getting married. I'll hear it from Norn first. Here you go. Thanks. As I thought that, Norn had returned and placed a teacup in front of me. I sat right in front of Norn and drank from the cup. You've gotten quite good at making tea. I learned it in school after all. Not from Lilia-san. Lilia-san probably wouldn't teach me. Rather than not teaching you, she'd most likely tell you to let me do it. If you asked, I think she'd still teach you. Page 15580.
I like that
but they had a
page
class at
change.
school, so I thought I might as well learn it there. Also, there aren't many opportunities to make tea at home.
No
but
more
there are plenty at
spelling
school.
out
That's true.
anything.
Like at the student council and in her dorm room. Maybe even at work. Well, it's just something Norn decided herself. We're having a casual conversation to warm up to the topic, but I would like to cut right to it. What should I say? What do I talk about? Ahem. I cleared my throat and Norn gave me a puzzled look. Is there something missing? No, not that. The tea is good. I said that and took another sip of the steaming tea. It wasn't particularly great, but at the same time it's not bad enough to spit out. It's very Norn-like, mediocre tea. Good, but not skilled, that kind of feeling. In other words, it's good. That aside. Lately, Norn, recently. How's it been? How what been? For instance, how about work? Page 16580. Everything's normal. While being taught by my senpai, I've been doing the jobs I'm capable of. But, I'm sure if it was Aisha, she'd be far better than me. Stop comparing yourself to Aisha. I said that and Norn nodded. Aisha does a different kind of work. You shouldn't compare yourself to someone doing a different job. And, your senpai. Are they that? Are they cool? They're super pretty. You've talked to them once before as well, Nii-san. When I was the student council president, they was the vice president. That tough beast race one. Not him, the girl. Right, the woman. I get it. I don't remember her name, but there was definitely someone like that. Now that I think about it, when she was looking for a job, I remember having a conversation like that. Like that they had entered the same department. Right, the girl. I wonder if there are any male senpai. There are. Those male senpai. Are there any good-looking ones? There are some good-looking ones, and some who aren't as well. There seems to be someone cool. That's important. Nii-san, What have you been wanting to say? Calm down, Norn. Don't jump to any conclusions. It looks like you're the one that need to calm down. I am calm. Page 17580. I'm always
need to
cool,
calm
clever
down.
and clean. Rudius of the 3 C's. Never crazy, that word is not in there.
Grammar's a
So,
bit
Norn,
off
ahem,
in
say,
this.
if, do you think, this cool person, is, cool? You're wondering if I like him. Do you like him? Damn it. I suddenly jumped straight to the point. I don't particularly like him. Hey, mama yo. Then do you have somebody you like? There is. There is. She answered, now, in the flow of the conversation. She answered me honestly. She gave me an answer. Yes, right. There is, well you're at that age. So there is someone, there's nothing odd about that. Yes. But you were most definitely odd just then. What are you saying? There's nothing odd about me. What's odd is this world. This world is wrong. Don't you agree? So, what kind of person are they? The person you like. He's older. Page 18,
He's older.
And reliable.
Don't you dare.
And he's always looking out for me. He fulfills all 3 conditions. Could it be me? Are you half asleep? I'm sorry. I got ahead of myself. He's far older than you, Nii-san, and even is the situation he would be calm, he is a composed man of presence. You know, your brother, recently, hasn't been getting flustered at all. Please remember your manner from a few minutes ago. Grr. But, far older than me, a man of presence. Damn it. Far older. Is that more than 10 years? Even more. I didn't expect you to be into old men. To say I'm into old men. Well, I will admit that I like men older than me. Even more would be more than 20 years older than me. Meaning 40 or 50 years old. And on top of that, having a presence, he might be rather plump. A lower center of gravity would cause a sense of stability and presence. Page 19580.
Don't you fucking
The
do
corrupt
it,
head of some
Norn.
trading company or some sly greasy old man, was the image that floated into my mind. I don't intend to criticize because of an age difference, but I can only see this man as some kind of sugar daddy. I won't acknowledge it, I definitely won't acknowledge something like that. But if this greasy old man turns out to be surprisingly sincere, then the age difference is of no concern.
The tides of
You can't judge a
fate.
book by its cover.
Fuck.
But I understand that it's a love that is not meant to be.
It's
Not
still
meant to be.
happening.
Is he married?
It's still canon.
His wife is already gone. She's already dead. Or perhaps divorced. It's possible that he simply had a letter of divorce thrust before him. Wait, I seem to have gotten forcefully sidetracked, what if? But apparently, I'm quite similar to his dead wife. Then I'm definitely wrong. I would have to be wrong.
The
That man
fate
wouldn't
too
say such a
strong.
thing.
The tides
That's a
of
pretty cliche
fate.
pickup line. To get a hold of someone much younger than you, saying that you're similar to my wife, of course it's a cliche pickup line. It brings in the possibility of marriage. No, wait, now that I think about it, it doesn't sound like a pickup line. You're completely different to my wife, this is the first time I've met someone like you, something like that sounds much closer to a pickup line. Page 2580. I'm being picked up. Norns brought her hands to her cheeks, they became somewhat red. She's happy about being picked up. Right, it's not the other party, Norn is the one that likes him. But there's still the possibility that Norn is being tricked. But I'm sure that if I said that to Norn right now it'd start a fight, so I won't. Anyway, why did you ask something like that so suddenly? No, You must have some kind of reason. Norn began to scowl at me. She's talked with me honestly until now, so I should also answer honestly, is the kind of face she's giving me right now. I didn't think you'd talk with me honestly to this point. But I just wanted to confirm if she had someone that she likes. It might be awkward to say this after the conversation we just had. Yes. Norn, who had been leaned forward until now, sat back slightly. The truth is, Norn, talk about your engagement has come up. After hearing that, Norn froze for several seconds. Eyes wide open and mouth turned down at the corners. She carefully examined me. A marriage proposal. I understand. I'll accept it. No, I get it. Don't say any more, let's pretend this conversation never happened. No, like I said, I'll accept. I looked at Norn. Page 21580. She looked quite suspicious of me if I do say so myself. Don't you have someone you like? That's fine. It's a love that can't be after all. I'm not a noble, but since Nii-san is in some kind of position of nobility, I thought this kind of conversation would happen eventually. I've heard it from people I know as well. From when I heard that you were making connections with other countries, I assumed I would be used this way. Don't say things like being used. I have no intention of using my family like tools.
Ruijerd's
In response to my rather
gonna
strong
be in
tone,
Norn.
Norn was taken aback and apologized. Right. I'm sorry.
Kill the bitch.
She's an honest girl. Norn, if you say you don't like it, we can forget this conversation happened.
Maybe.
No. I'm not particularly against it. The fact that you'd even bring the conversation to me means that they're definitely not someone I'd hate, right? Well, yeah. I don't think he's someone you'd hate. After the battle at the Bihilil Kingdom the two seem to get along. No matter where he is, Ruijerd is a sincere man. Well, I still haven't gotten Ruijerd's acknowledgement yet. But he probably wouldn't object. But, it's not as if I absolutely want to get married, but it's not as if I don't either. If you say that it's okay, then I would like to take you up on your offer of ignoring this talk. But if you insist, I wouldn't mind continuing the conversation. Norn said that and averted her eyes. Like I thought, she doesn't particularly want to get married. It's only that she'd do what I say. Page 22580. That may be something good for me, but for Norn, it's not. No, I haven't even talked to the other party. So it's alright. Is that right? Thank you very much. If Norn says that, Orsted probably won't be too happy about it. By the way, what kind of person were they? The king of some country? Some Asuran noble. They aren't royalty or nobility. It's somebody you know. Somebody I know. Ah, was it Zanaba-senpai by any chance? I don't think that guy would be interested in marriage. Zanaba is something else. He exuberates such a lovey-dovey atmosphere around Julie, but he doesn't seem to be getting any closer to Ginger.
Unit. He is another
he probably intends to
creature.
remain married to his dolls for life. It's Ruijerd. I told her the name of the partner. By the time I had realized, Norn had placed her hands on the table and bent forward. She had a serious face. Her face was red and she seemed angry. I wonder if I hurt her feelings. Norn looks up to Ruijerd with respect, but as I thought, it's not like that. Yeah. Sorry, Nii-san was mistaken. Of course it's a no, putting aside the difference in race, the age gap is just too big, even you. Page 23 580. Nii-san. Please proceed with that engagement. Norn cut off my words, without concealing the excitement and joy from her voice. Page 24 580.
No.
Part 4.
No.
After all that, or should I say, as expected. It seems the person Norn liked was Ruijerd. She had looked up to him ever since she was little.
No.
That admiration from childhood eventually grew into love, and the incident in the Bihilil kingdom reawoke it. I like this person. But after hearing about his past, she was convinced that she couldn't be with him, and decided to hide her feelings. I understand, leave it to your own
know, it's fine.
After hearing all that, I hit my chest.
I'm not
Page
gonna,
25 580.
I'm not gonna fix
Author Q&A. Q, before you said it would be 1 to 2 chapter in a month and now it's 2 in 1 day. You always exceed expectations. Maganote-san salute. Although for now, the first 3 chapters are just Norn's story. After that's over it'll be around another month. I return 580. Author Q&A.
No, I'm not interested in the Q&A.
I have waited. Rather than Chapter 2. Norn's marriage, second part.
Second
part.
part.
Leave it to me. I said that and began
Let's go.
preparations for the marriage. Norn has given an affirmative response, the problem lies on Ruijerd's side. He is an adult. If I asked him to marry my sister, he would most likely agree to it. Thinking logically, marrying my family is also to the benefit of the Suitors race. Objectively, looking at my title, I am a trusted retainer of the Dragon God.
And Rudy
Since
met
ancient times,
Roxy
marriage
when
has been
he
a way
was
of deepening
3.
strength of an alliance. With Ruijerd and Norn's marriage, the Suitors race
Yeah.
will oppose the Dragon God
Yeah, I know.
faction, and we would no longer have to cast them away. That's the proposal I have prepared. It is a happy proposal. But is that really alright? Would that make Norn happy? If Ruijerd married her thinking it can't be helped, would Norn be satisfied? When she realizes that she isn't loved back, she will most likely break into tears. Ruijerd is currently in Bihilil Kingdom, in charge of negotiations. Which means that Norn wouldn't live in the Magic City Sharia any longer and would move to the Suitors village. After the incident in the Bihilil Kingdom, the whole village knows her name and face, so the villagers would most likely accept her. Page 27 580. But, while living with a race other than your own, the common sense and daily lifestyle would be different. Would Norn be able to make a good living? Worst case, Norn would be ostracized from the villagers. I'm worried. Very worried. I asked my 3 wives for advice on the issue. Roxy said, if it's Norn, she'll be fine. Eris said, if it's Ruijerd, she'll be fine. Sylphy said, you're overthinking this. But I am still worried. I cannot allow Norn to meet with misfortune.
What the
If Norn
fuck?
were to spend her days crying, Paul would glare at me in my dreams, and Zenith would be standing at my bedside slapping me awake from my peaceful sleep.
They're all fine
For
with
both their
this.
sakes, I must make sure
What?
Norn is on the road to happiness. Anything after that is up to Norn herself. Of course, I understand that Ruijerd is a man worthy of my faith. Even if he didn't love Norn from the bottom of his heart, I know that he would treat his wife properly. He would care for her in a way that would never cause her to cry. But I still have to confirm this with Ruijerd.
It's not
No matter
weird
how
to
much
them.
Ruijerd might not
It's
love Norn,
weird to
Even
me.
if I must prepare
It's
some kind of
weird
event to
to
have them get along
me.
better, it should be possible to have Ruijerd's feelings for Norn turn around. And then everything should reach a happy end. Alright. Page 28 580. And so, with that, I arrived at the Suitors village in Bihilil Kingdom. The Suitors village, a few months into reconstruction, already looked complete. The village was surrounded by large trees and on the inside, houses were lined up in rows. They hadn't harvested yet, but there were crops growing in the field. When the Suitors warriors saw me, they bowed their heads and kindly led me into the village. After I gave an appropriate
this
greeting in
show's
response,
weird, bro.
we quickly made our way to Ruijerd's house. Of course, it was a new building. Ruijerd held a rather significant standing in this village, so his house was large. Yup, it's more than enough for 2 people to live. Ruijerd-san, are you in? Oh, Rudius. Ruijerd was inside. It seemed he had just finished eating.
No.
He was sitting next to the
It better
fireplace in the
not
center
be
of the room
both
with
the
his
way.
eyes
It
closed in
can't.
some kind
There's
of state of
no
meditation.
way.
I went and
This
sat down in front of him and seized
romance
Ruijerd opened
turns
his eyes
out to
and
be
gave me a
both
puzzled look.
ways. There's
What's wrong?
no
As he
way.
asked me, I turned my palm towards Ruijerd. Please
Absolutely
wait a minute,
no way.
I'm still choosing my words. Alright. And so I kept my silence. Page 29 580. While sitting there staring at the flickering fire, it felt like nearly an hour had passed. It may sound odd, but I couldn't think of anything to start with. I know what I must say. Ruijerd's feeling for Norn. Whether he likes her or dislikes her and what he thinks of her a marriage partner. But I don't know how to word it. How do you feel about marrying Norn? No, marriage and feelings are separate issues. I can't forget that. Ruijerd didn't try to start a conversation with me as I was sitting in silence. He was waiting for me to start talking. As if to say that there was absolutely no need to rush, that I should choose my words at ease. I don't know whether or not he has some business to take care of, but he probably doesn't have anything to do. Most likely, he acts this way towards Norn as well. Or it's possible that Norn may think of this attitude of his a little irritating. No, probably not. The very reason Norn fell in love with Ruijerd was because of this particular trait of him. A partner not bothered by silence is a valuable thing. Although I'm agonizing a little over it now. Right, recently, Norn has been making tea. She's gotten quite good. Norn's tea. I said that fishing for a response, and Ruijerd replied. As I thought, he is somewhat interested in Norn. So is the first condition clear? Page 3580. No, wait, when a man who has been sitting in silence for an hour says something, no matter what it's about, you would reply. Don't rush. It's about the flow of the conversation. It seems that because she's been making it at her workplace, she's gotten better. Is that so? When she came to the village before, it was good. Ruijerd closed his eyes as if he was remembering something. Is that so? It seems Ruijerd has already had Norn's tea. It was good, he says. Putting it like that means that he would probably like to try it again. Is he thinking something like I'd like her to make me tea every day? Damn it, how should I ask him? I want a choice list. Is this how Orsted feels when he's talking with me? Then should I just tell him outright? How should I do it? Just how should I ask? It's not just her tea, her cooking isn't bad either. While I was toiling, the conversation continued. The conversation kept flowing. The flow did not stop. But wait, what did he just say? Cooking. Have you tried it? Yes. Norn's cooking. Even though I've never had it before? Page 31580. Is that so? I wonder what she made. Beef stew or curry or omuris or maybe even beef stroganoff. I want to try it too. I want to eat it. No, I have to set myself aside for now. But in any case, if he likes her cooking then that means it's not hopeless. Her cooking won't make one's mouth water, but it seems that she's not that awful. And after they get married, we won't be seeing Ruijerd getting slim. Is something the matter with Norn? While I was thinking, Ruijerd had asked that. It was a reasonable assumption. No, I suddenly came in here with a serious face and started talking about Norn. What I want to talk about should be obvious. No. It's not that anything's particularly the matter, it was small talk. But I'm still lacking the courage, resolve and guts to cut right to the point. Do you like Norn? Do you love her? Do you immediately want to hold her? I'm afraid I would hear back, I don't think of her like that at all, I can't marry her, even if I did I wouldn't be able to love her. And if I did, I'm sure I'd be shocked. And I'm sure I'd say something like just what about Norn doesn't suit you? And pick a fight. It's just that, Norn is also growing up, and she already has a job. She still has plenty of time for children. But there isn't even any kind of male presence around her. I was just wondering if she'll be able to properly get married. Page 32580. I said that and looked at Ruijerd. Was that too blunt? Ruijerd was looking at me suspiciously. Isn't it a custom of the human race for the head of the family to pick marriage partners? Can you not decide who Norn's partner will be? No, I'm not a noble. I think it would be a good thing for Norn to be able to find her own partner, yes. I keep taking glances at Ruijerd, but his expression doesn't change. No, a bit of severity has been added to his suspicious gaze. Does he think I'm being irresponsible? But of course. If Norn comes along and bring back some good for nothing, I would drag him out to a desert and tell him if you want Norn, you have to defeat me. I won't hand Norn over to some useless nobody. I make a hurried explanation. While I push the matter with Norn it would be bad to have him think me to be irresponsible. I don't know how it will be bad, but it will. So basically, if someone would like to marry Norn, they would have to defeat you. No. Something like that won't always be necessary. But, just, right, guts. Yes, they would have to show me that they have the guts to do it. Someone who would lose their nerve under pressure and run away is no good. I cannot entrust Norn to someone like that. I also often lose my nerve, but I at least have no intention of running away. They must have the guts to still fight even if they know they'll lose. Is that right? Yes. Page 33580. Of course, Ruijerd is good on that front. I keep glancing at Ruijerd to try and tell him what I mean, but his expression doesn't change. Just his stone-like gaze. It seems he's not interested in Norn after all. Well, of course. To him, Norn is just a child. From childhood, he had only known her as a frail little girl. Ruijerd couldn't hold those kind of passionate feeling for a child. He's just that kind of man. Ruijerd-san. I'll get right to the point. But I still have to hear it. Even if it's a sad outcome for Norn. I cannot decide based just on the look on his face. I am also prepared. What do you think of Norn? Ruijerd is silent. He silently stares intensely at me. His face is like stone, truly intense. His suspicion completely disappears.
I'm just thinking of Ruijerd just like looking at Rudius like the same way. You know that one episode early on in the anime season where he just like looked at Rudius and the animation just gets like really freaking like fuzzy and like really like intense. I'm just expecting that situation like happening here. He's just staring him dead in the eyes. He's just like, oh my gosh. He's like, he just Because Rudy's ability to read the situation is actually horrible. But I imagine him like talking about Norn this entire time. He's just been staring at him so intensely, but he's just so used to it at this point. He doesn't pick up on any cues at all.
For 580. That's odd. Normally Ruijerd would immediately reply in this kind of situation. A child or a warrior. It should be one of these two. Do you like Norn? I am prepared. The words that will begin it. It may have been something that I shouldn't have said. It may have been something that Norn should have said herself. I see. As Ruijerd uttered those short words, he stood up as if he had decided something, and took his spear into his hand. Rudius, outside.
Oh fuck.
I understood the meaning of that action,
Oh, fuck.
and looked up at him. Towards me, still bewildered on the ground, Ruijerd once again, said in a harsh tone. Outside. Yes. To that impact, denying a reply, I readily obeyed. Page 35 580. Part 2. We traveled roughly 10 minutes from the Suitors village into the forest surrounding the Earth Dragon Valley. Deep into the forest. Here in a small clearing, Ruijerd and I faced each other.
He has to be willing to fight.
Ruijerd had a stern
Rudy
face the entire time.
fuck.
I might have made him mad. After that conversation, it's no surprise that conveying Norn's feeling to him was a failure. Or he might have just misunderstood. As some form of political maneuver, I was presenting him with Norn. If it's Ruijerd, he'd say like a man, as her brother you must protect Norn. You mustn't use her to curry favor. It's because he's reliable like that I can trust him. You already noticed it a while back. But what came out of Ruijerd's mouth was outside of my predictions. What have I noticed? I, who am currently standing here in confusion. I, who cannot even guess what is right by any standard. What? Don't say any more, here I come. Page 36 580. It seems there's no use in talking. I had no reason to have my precognition eye open, and without it, I had no way to see Ruijerd's movements. What? Ruijerd closed in an instant and I was thrown to the ground. But opposed to 10 years ago, I knew what to do. Thanks to my regular training, I managed a last-minute response. Ruijerd came at me with his spear from the right, and I raised the right hand of the magic armor MK2 to guard. But Ruijerd then came around with a low kick which I blocked, and then used that leg as a pivot and kicked around with his other leg to knock me down. How's that? Ruijerd thrust his spear at the back of my neck and looked down at me expressionlessly. I concede. Splendid skills. I have no idea what's going on. But I can't say anything else. I don't think he'd stab my neck, but it's obviously my loss. Is this sufficient?
Is this
What's
sufficient?
he talking about? Is what sufficient? Isn't it me that's insufficient? Then, is this enough? Page 37 580. I don't know what's enough, but in this
Oh
situation
gosh, I'm
he's not
turning on
lacking
the
anything.
fan for this,
No
bro.
matter
I'm
what I say, it would still be
sweating.
uncouthly. This is enough. As I said that, Ruijerd moved his spear out of the way.
I'm sweating,
I raised my body
bro.
up and sat down, and looked up at Ruijerd with my pathetic face. Then as promised, I get your sister. And then Ruijerd said something odd. He gets my sister? What about my sister? Was there that?
Oh shit! Bro! I didn't expect it to be this fucking crazy. Bro, Ruijerd horny, bro. What the fuck? I get your sister. Your sister is mine. Bro, I just said if he was a good for nothing, I'd find him. Oh. Sorry. Am I, good for nothing?
Kind of promise? What were we talking about? I seem to have lost sight of the conversation. It's just as you suspected. What did I suspect? I have fallen in love with Norn. Fallen in love. I desperately tried to remember the meaning of that phrase. If I remember correctly. It's a feeling. A feeling of longing for someone. Page 38 580. Which means that Ruijerd likes Norn. No, wait, don't jump ahead. Misunderstanding are my weakness. So Ruijerd-san, you like Norn. I like her. Am I being pranked? Should I happily say, then I'll let you marry Norn. And then when I go and bring Norn along in a white kimono, Ruijerd will come along with a giant billboard saying huge success. That would be a huge mental shock. Norn might even kill herself. It has to be Hitagama's doing. Damn it. For Ruijerd to be Hitagama's apostle. Is this some kind of joke? Or maybe a punishment game? It is not a joke. Ruijerd looked slightly offended by that. That's right, Ruijerd isn't the type to joke around.
Bro, is this a
especially at
prank?
times like this. From when? Several months ago, around the time of the battle in the Bihilil Kingdom. I would like to hold closely the woman who so devotedly looked after me. They did look like they were getting along well together back then. It couldn't have just been Norn's one-sided feelings. I thought I would be pushing Ruijerd into a marriage, but it seems like it wasn't like that at all. Of course,
Okay,
I didn't intend to make a move,
okay.
which means that if she wasn't my
Concerning
sister,
that one point here, I really hate this part of Rudy, how bad he is at reading people. Bro, okay, Norn is legal, we get that. But Ruijerd is 500. Anyway, the freaking, I can understand why Rudy is written like this, so that we get into situations like this, really funny situations like this, and this is just hilarious to me. I love these scenes. this shit's hilarious. But it does get frustrating at times. You have to write him consistently. But for gems like this, it's honestly worth it. It's hilarious, but it makes me angry. Yeah, but I think the comedy overrides it for me, in all honesty.
He would have made a move. Page 39 580. Normally he would have made a move. According to Orsted, that's how it went in the previous loops.
500 is a teenager
which is why you
super.
came
Shut
around
the
with that
fuck
sudden
up.
conversation. That's not why. All I knew was that Norn liked Ruijerd.
Ruijerd really loved children, huh? Yeah, I guess.
There's no way I'm that sharp. I'm the thick-headed type. My cutting ability is the same as that of a flail. I'll say it again. I would like to marry Norn Grere. Ruijerd said that and pointed his spear at my neck. For that purpose, I have shown you my guts. So that's what this is. This is happening because I said that. A duel to test courage. But I don't even have the strength needed to witness the extent of Ruijerd's guts. Well, there's no point in confirming something like that now. But something like that. Being more confused than you thought. And things advancing too well. Is this a trap? Just who is trying to entrap who? I don't get it. What's going on? Page 4580. Are you alright with your previous wife or your son? I don't know and therefore continue questions. I said that while sitting down and looking up at Ruijerd, and he answered. I told you before. I won't be dragged around by my past anymore. I do remember him saying it was because there was no one there for him. Ruijerd looked at me sitting and put down his spear and sat too. I changed to Caesar. With that, our gazes were the same height. Meaning. Ruijerd said just that, and hung his head with a difficult face. He kept silent. Having me suddenly appear and exposing his feeling, awakening his resolution, and he brought me all the way out here. But he was always bad with words. And on top of that, he probably had a lot of things he wanted to say. I was in too much of a hurry. Even with what Orsted had said, there was no need to immediately set these two up. I should have used a more indirect plan to bring the two of them together. Like having Norn kidnapped and Ruijerd rescuing her. No, the only one who would be charmed by that would be Norn.
Guys, you're using you guys are using examples from this series. I'm sorry, I don't care what the world is like. For me, 500 a person who's 500 marrying a 20-year-old is very, very weird. It is the freaking. It is extremely weird. I don't care what precedence it has for the series. I don't care. It's weird. That's all I'm saying, man. It's weird. This whole thing has been weird.
Wait, if I did that, Norn would hate me. Page 41 580. I would eventually marry a human. While I was worrying away, Ruijerd said something. When would eventually be? What do you mean by that? Thanks to you, the supered race is headed towards restoration. The people of the Bihilil kingdom and the ogres have kindly accepted us. Eventually, like the ogre race, the country's royalty and nobility would send someone to create a blood relation with. And it seems I was deemed to be the most suitable match. So there was something like that going on.
Okay,
well,
I already said that Rudy and Roxy is weird. I already said that. I am a full supporter of the Rudy and Sylphy club. Rudy and Eris is okay. Rudy and Sylphy, I'm 100% for. But bro, I've already explained to you that Roxy and Eris has already been a precedent set, and I thought that shit was weird. Because Rudy's had an interest since he was like 3. And she was 50. This series is weird. What the fuck? No, that's Rudy, the greatest lolicon, and Roxy too. Yeah, freaking.
Ruijerd's position was something like the assistant of the chief.
I'm not gonna freaking tell him this anymore.
Of the previous war, he was looked up to. The village idol. Maybe a little off, but he's something like a guardian deity. Ruijerd would end up marrying some Bihilil noblewoman. The supered race would enter a position of guardians of the Bihilil kingdom and they would be able to rest easy. But if I had the choice, Rudius, your family would be better. With those words, I felt warm from the bottom of my heart. A good relationship with Bihilil kingdom would be to their benefit. I'm sure that it would be much more beneficial as opposed to being in my family. But Ruijerd chose my family. I was chosen. No, not me. Not good. I almost became
I know what you're referring to. It's probably going to be the Aisha chapter. It was canceled. If this wasn't canceled, that's got to be canceled for a really weird reason. So I imagine I'll be going crazy about that. But from what I hear, it's very late in the redundancy. And we're not getting to that point in this stream, I'm sorry.
But as I was thinking that, I realized something. Page 42 580. Is Norn alright with you?
Like,
what do you mean by that?
Like, I've been reading this for like around like 35 minutes or so, and we're only 5% of the way through Redundancy. This shit is long, so...
Is suspicious. Norn is. How do I say it? Quite selfish. And without thinking about the conciseness,
don't want to hype it up too much, bro.
If you, for example, had some kind of lover's quarrel, she may end up saying something insensitive about your past. Words that I didn't expect came out. That was odd.
You guys are talking about future stuff. Worry about the present.
But all that comes out are the bad points. It seems like she can do housework, but it can't be called her speciality. She can study, but she can't put very much of it to practical use. She fails at most things the first time. At Sharia she can cope with most things easily, but at the Supert village, there would be plenty of things she wouldn't be able to figure out. I'm sure she would end up causing trouble for you. No, this isn't what I want to say. In my house there's another young woman. For example, Aisha. Honestly, Aisha is far more excellent than Norn.
Chapters were deleted for a technicality.
She's better to the extent that there's nothing Norn can do that Aisha can't.
I doubt that.
I can't help but think, is Norn alright? I want to root for Norn. But I also like Ruijerd.
Headcanon says it was too cursed.
It's because I want these two to be happy that I try to think of how to make sure no one is dissatisfied. But that's the result of her trying her very hardest. What interrupts my words is
my
Ruijerd.
brain believe that it's cursed.
Norn's bad points and her good points. I lost my words and Ruijerd looked as if he was pressing me for answers. You know it too, don't you? Of course. Norn has plenty of good things about her. I'm not that well informed on Norn as of late. But I know what kind of person she has become. Having lost to Aisha, she became far more docile than necessary. She became far less hysteric and began to get along with Aisha. Taking care of someone is good. It wasn't so much at home, but her classmates and juniors looked up to her. At her 15th birthday, plenty of Norn's friends came. Even now, some of her school's underclassmen still come over for help over studying, or the student council comes to ask for advice. Norn goes at everything with the utmost effort. And as a result of trying her hardest at everything, although she can't be the best, she can at least somehow do the things she isn't good at. Because Norn has plenty of things she isn't good at, she can't do things in an instant compared to others. And so compared to Aisha, there's a world of difference. But other people don't matter. With her own effort, she steadily advances. Page 44 580. And I'm sure that, from here on out, she'll continue like that. Norn is just that kind of girl. A very good girl.
Freaking nerds,
a little sister I can be proud of.
Calm
and
down.
Also knew that.
I want my headcanon to think that it's cursed, okay?
There's no need for me to say it. And even Norn's bad parts. He had known for a long time, and accepted it.
You don't have to correct
taking
me.
It all in and still holding feeling for her. Whenever it may be, will you always protect Norn? Yes. Ruijerd gave a reassuring nod. Right, if it's him, he'd protect Norn until he died. When you get married, and Norn is surrounded by a different race, separated from her family, and think she's in trouble, will you support her? Yes. Ruijerd gave a reassuring nod. Right, if it's him, he'd support Norn until he died. If Norn is feeling down and says something bad, will...
There's too much chat. It's well done, Ryan, but the thing is that his Ryan is a bit sussy baka. Alright, guys. Let's just wait till he gets there. You guys are about to borderline spoil it. I know, this is what happens when you guys talk about future chapters. Every single time we do something like this. It turns out I guess who Geese is, apparently, or Geese. Freaking... I turned out to able to correctly predict who Geese is. Whenever we get to stuff like situations like that in the future, whenever we talk about that, there are people alluding to it, and then new people come in thinking that we're already like in there, and then they talk about it, and then it's just spoil. Okay. You guys can chill. You can talk about it, but like focus on the present. We are currently witnessing one of the weirdest marriages yet to happen in the series.
You remind her of her courtesy. Yes. Ruijerd gave a reassuring nod. Right, if it's him, he would comfort Norn and gently hold her. Norn is a Millis believer. Can you promise not to cheat? Yes. Page 45 580. Ruijerd gave a reassuring nod. Right, it's obvious. Ruijerd wouldn't lose himself to a woman's wiles. Norn is, she's a bigger crybaby than me, is that okay? Yes. So don't you start crying. I began crying my eyes out. His words were short but his tone was resolute. His face was serious and his gaze, earnest. There's no problem. I understand. I suddenly remembered. During the journey across the central continent after the teleport incident, I remained at ease by Ruijerd's side. No matter what kind of demonic creature, I could rest, assured that he would protect us. Of course, he's not that great at taking care of other things than demons, but as a person, that can't be helped. Nobody's perfect. Norn can simply make up for the things Ruijerd can't do. And I'm sure Norn, as she is now, can do that. She has already proven that. If she couldn't, then Ruijerd wouldn't have said that he desired her. While thinking like that, my shoulder grew weak. I was relieved. Please take care of my sister. Finally, I lowered my head. Page 46.
Q&A, I don't really care. Unless there's a really, like, cool question here. I think this belongs on the daily rankings, but if the people that see Mushoku Tensei and then go read the original are only a few, I think it would be a waste. The redundancy chapter is just an extra, so it's okay. What the fuck? Alright, let me just... Norn's perspective. Ah, Norn's perspective. Ah, yes, yes. Going to one of these scenes. Yes, the precedent for the freaking change of perspective has been pretty damn good. So we'll see how this goes.
If he had asked, she would have. Norn's perspective. It has been decided that I will be marrying Ruijerd-san. It was quite a sudden experience. I answered earnestly to my brother's various inquiries, after which he pulled Ruijerd-san along with him in no less than 10 days. Ruijerd-san then confessed his love for me and asked my hand in marriage. The talk moved forward as my mind was still in a daze. The marriage ceremony was to be carried out after 10 more days. Brother and Ruijerd-san were steadily making progress. My job was to create a marriage dress along with the suitors women. A very suitors-like dress which looked similar to what Ruijerd-san always wore. It seemed that the marriage would be carried out in suitors style. I wished that I would get to do it in Mealy's style, but stressing the fact that I would be the one going to Ruijerd-san's place as his bride, I wasn't reluctant. All the suitors people were good-natured as well, and I honestly didn't want anything more than this. Ruijerd-san would probably not like being kissed on his forehead in public. Brother told me that he would take care of it and I could only be grateful for that. Page 48 580. But, maybe, if I only wished for just the Mealy's necklace then maybe. Should I ask for it? I'm pretty sure this might be my last chance to request something selfish from my brother. I was currently in the middle of clearing out my room as I was pondering about such things. The room that I have been living in almost every day together with Aisha after being brought along by Ruijerd-san. Since I had been living in the dormitory for so long, my attachment with the dorm room was stronger than this one. But I realized that various memories dwelled within this room as I was clearing things out one by one. The doll of Ruijerd-san created by Zanaba-senpai. I was very moved the first time I saw it and ended up asking for it, after which I placed it in my dorm room. Even Nii-san did not say anything. Some way or another, gazing at this doll became my daily habit. It wasn't an exact replica of Ruijerd-san, but it was still similar to him. I kept wishing that I could see him again, watching this doll every day. And then the wooden sword. The sword I received from Arasani-san, which I swung almost every day because of the training I received from her. I hadn't really progressed that much, and I knew that I didn't have much talent for it, but it was fun. Swinging a sword is quite fun, and it wasn't like I wished to be the world's strongest. No one in Sharia said something ridiculous like you don't have talent so forget about it. Of course, that list also included Nii-san and even Arasani-san, Sylphy-san, and Roxy-san. Not even Zanaba-senpai or Cliff-senpai said something like that. Even though
He's
even every one
creeping
of
in
them were
on
extremely
Norn.
gifted,
He's
they didn't
looking
say
at
anything.
her.
I now know how wonderful a thing
Watching.
they did for me, and I am grateful for that. And I also understand that even though I did not have any talent, giving your all and working hard is what really mattered. If not for that, I would have never become the student council president. Page 49 580. In the student council where I became the president, none of them had any talent. To some teachers, and even during the first part of the year, we were known as the stupid student council. But only Vice Principal Gina said the students are getting along well, even better than during Ariel's presidency. Actually, it seemed that crimes and violence among students were few during my time as president. It was possible that I just got lucky, but I think that it was because we didn't have any talent. It was because we were dumb, we could be considerate of the students. Because we were dumb, the students could be considerate of us. They would think that they had no choice but to help us out. If in a school of over 10,000 people, if they know that a student council of little more than 10 people are still giving their best, it's only natural that those 10,000 students would start to be more considerate. I had also stopped wearing my school uniform, which now stay in the closet. If I recall, I heard from someone that Nanahashi-san designed this uniform. Before that, students wore tattered clothing. But everybody was already wearing the uniforms or robes by the time I enrolled. Everyone wore the same uniform, be it a student with a scary face or a bewitching woman. I thought it was because everyone wore the same uniforms that I had so many friends. Were it not for the uniforms, I wouldn't have been able to make so many friends. Just by looking at the demon race or a beast race, I couldn't even approach them as I would be too scared by their appearance. Well, something like that is beyond me, really. But even Aisha mimicked us by adopting the uniform system in her mercenary group, which led me to believe that putting on the same uniform on every student was a very effective move. Cause even that Aisha ended up doing it. And finally, father's sword that was now hanging on the wall. The sword he used almost all the time before marrying mother. The sword given to me by Nii-san when he was page 5580. Distributing father's belongings. There was one more sword given to Aisha, but he quickly took it away saying that he had to use it in the war. Father's armor laid in mother's room. I used to pray to the sword each time something happened. Father wasn't really Ameli's believer and was someone who would scowl at the very mention of it, but I liked doing it anyway. If he were still alive, he would surely scold me for this, but I didn't think that he would hate it. Since even father tried his best at things. Because there are times when we fail even if we work hard, which is
Bro,
true for me and
is
even
there
NII
like
said.
clicking
That's why I
noises
like doing it.
happening right now
And thus
with
today
this
as well, I prayed to
freaking
my father.
reading?
I am going to get married now, father. No, it was more like a report than a prayer, I guess.
Or is it
NII
just my
said this.
headphones? Freaking
It
hell.
seemed that even he visited father's grave to report things. Even though he's such a busy person. He's very diligent. NII-san has been diligently playing your role, father. Even though I think that I am a burden to him, he's still doing his best for my sake without raising any complaints whatsoever. I can't thank him enough for what he's done for me. I intended to report about my marriage but ended up giving my thanks to NII-san. I thought of NII-san as someone who protected me by filling in for father who died and mother who became that way. Of course, he's a very busy person so he couldn't keep his eye on me all the time, which made me thought he looked after me unwillingly after father's death. I now know that it wasn't like that. I can't explain it more properly, but NII-san seriously tried his best to fill in for both father and mother. I had a memory, a very old and distant one. It was a memory of right after I had been born. Of course it was vague and I didn't have a good grip on it. It was a time when I couldn't even reply in short words properly. It was a memory where I had a contest with Aisha. Page 51 580. I didn't know why we were having a contest, but I remember that mother was there at the goal line. And of course I was defeated by Aisha. Aisha reached mother with a terrific speed and then mother hugged Aisha and praised her. I cried after watching that. Mother was far from me and I thought that she was stolen away by Aisha, that I wouldn't be receiving any praise, and so I cried. And then mother said, Norn, I'm waiting right here for you, so come to me. She said that and waited for me until I finally managed to reach her, and then she praised me. NII-san was also someone who waited for me. No matter how slow I was, he still waited for me. He persevered, even at times when he was confused or smiled wryly. He never once abandoned me and always waited for me. He's that kind of person. That's why I think that he seriously tried to fill in mother's shoes as well. It's the same with the marriage preparations as well. NII-san did all of it. I did think that if father was still alive then he would have done the same things as NII-san. He might have not liked Ruijerd-san and would have gotten into a quarrel with him, but if it came to marriage then he would have said leave it to me and would have done the preparations in secret. Since it seemed like the same thing happened during mother's marriage. While thinking about such things I continued clearing out my room, and in no time, I was finished. It was never a room that had much in it, but now that my personal belongings were no longer here it was completely empty. It seemed like this room would be used by Lucy-chan and other kids, but it should be fine if it's cleared out this much. Now all I had to do was to take my belongings and some keepsakes and go to Ruijerd-san's house. To Ruijerd-san's house in the Suitors village. Page 52 580. Honestly, it felt like I was in a dream or something. Marrying that Ruijerd-san that I admired for so long since way back then. My heart was beating like crazy. It seemed it was the same for Sylphy-san. Starting a married life with the person you love gives birth to expectations mixed with tension. Ruijerd-san was way older than me, but after I married him then I would have to do what NII-san and Sylphy-san and the others do. I knew how it's done but I didn't really put into practice. I'm a little nervous. I wonder if he'll be gentle. I wonder if I'll be able to do it properly. But my mind tilted more towards the expectations rather than tension. I was really nervous. That day, the moment I heard Ruijerd-san's name I immediately asked NII-san to go ahead with the marriage proposal. I was really glad about that. I thought that from the bottom of my heart. Hey, Norn-ana. Do you have a moment? Suddenly, I heard the knocking on the door. There was only one person who would call me Norn-ana. It was Aisha. Yeah, what's the matter? Can I talk to you for a bit? Aisha entered the room with a somewhat fidgety look and closed the door behind her. That was unusual. It's possible that this might be the first time I saw Aisha acting like this towards me. How about we sit down there? Okay. With a suggestive tone she sat on the bed. I put my luggage away which held my belongings which I was going to take to Ruijerd-san's place, and sat on a chair. Norn-ana, congratulations on your marriage. No, engagement. Page 53 580. Thank you. Now that I recalled, when NII-san announced my marriage, I was then congratulated by various people but never by Aisha. It's a somewhat strange feeling. That Norn-ana is getting married. Did you come here to say only that? No, not that. Norn-ana, how does it feel to get married? Aisha wasn't facing my way. She was averting her eyes away as if trying to ask something that shouldn't be asked. How? Meaning. Why are you getting married, Norn-ana? Now I remember. Aisha had said something like that to me before. That even though you know you don't have any talent, why would you still try? She was the same as usual little sister. Still, those things sounded like sarcasm or insults back in the day, but I've come to realize that those were quite the different things. Because Aisha is Aisha, she has so much talent in so many things, she ends up getting puzzled in various ways. Because she ends up doing everything easily, she can't understand someone who tries to do something which they cannot do. No. Words spoken by Aisha back in the day were mixed with a considerable amount of sarcasm. That's why I really disliked her in those days. But that dislike had already gotten away. I wonder just when the sarcasm got out of Aisha. I am not sure right now, but I do think that she changed a lot after Lucy-chan was born. Even if you ask me why. Well, for once this marriage has meaning to it, and I love Ruijerd-san as well. What's it like to love someone? Page 54 580. A desire to live together or the desire to hug your lover or be hugged back, those kind of feelings gush up naturally. I love my Oni-chan, but is that the wrong kind of love? I don't know because I'm not you. Right.
Oh,
After
fuck.
that Aisha stretched her legs out while sitting on the bed and fell on it with a thud. I really don't get it. While flapping her legs around,
no.
Aisha groaned in puzzlement. These days, both Persona and Ryu talk about nothing but marriage. It's so annoying. They keep talking about how I'll miss my chance or how I can't compromise after having come this far. Is marriage such a desperate thing to do? Do I have to do it? Is there really a need to do it theoretically? But it isn't like everyone is thinking that far, right? Do you not want to marry, Aisha? I don't know whether I want to or not. Don't you have anyone you like? Nope. I decided on marrying Ani-chan when I was a child, but even he seems to think differently of that idea, but then I can't even imagine leaving this house. Aisha was all over Ni-san ever since she was a small child. She was like that since I met her for the first time in Milis, around the time when father recovered and began to work splendidly for a short while. Honestly, no one really knew that Aisha was my sister. It was like if you asked someone from the hostel, they would go, ah, so she's from a previous marriage. Even Lilia-san said to see her as a fellow maid rather than my sister. I wonder just when I actually started to accept her as my own sister. Probably around the time when we started going to Mealy school together, or possibly when we traveled to Sharia with Ruijerd-san and Ginger-san. Page 55 580. I couldn't recall it now, but I did know that I had already acknowledged her as my sister when we started our new lifestyle in Sharia. Nornana, just how are you feeling right now? I feel blessed. Blessed? What kind of feeling is that? It's hard to explain, but, how do I put it, I feel like nothing could go wrong. I understand that it's not going to be nothing but good times from here on out, but I feel like from here on out, I don't have to doubt the good things anymore, something like that I guess. By the time I finished talking, Aisha had already sat up and was staring at me. And after a short pause, she said, "That's what you call being blessed? Seems to me that sort of thing. But I feel like that almost all the time. Then, aren't you always being blessed?" As I said that, Aisha fell on the bed once again. Being blessed? I don't think so. I'm kinda envious. I feel like I've lost to you for the first time. I don't really feel like I've won though. Nah, I lost. I probably lost to you, Nornana. That was unexpected. Never in my entire life, no matter what I did, was there a test where I won over Aisha. And it wasn't just Aisha. Even in school I wasn't someone special. I only had a 45% winning chance in a mock magic battle and averaged out at 80 marks in all of my tests. Of course, being the top student was only a trifling matter. If I studied and had a contest with Aisha who didn't study, then I would definitely win once or twice, but as the matches continued 10 or 20 times I would start to lose all of them. Aisha, page 56 580. Had a knack for knowing things, her growth was fast and she was good at gripping the essence. That Aisha felt at loss. Despite that I didn't feel all that happy. It's probably because I never really gave it my all, because I never intended to compete with her. And it's definitely not like I'm marrying so that I can have an upper hand on Aisha. Listen, Nornana. What is it? Can I come visit you once in a while after you get married? This was unexpected as well. It was probably because I had the impression that Aisha was keeping her distance from me for quite a while. She didn't show this kind of attitude when caring for Ni-san's kids, but even while I was alone or had nothing to do she wouldn't approach me that much. Yeah. Of course. When you have kids, let me hold them, okay? Okay. Kids. I've heard various things from Sylphy Nisan. Though I think that it's still too early for me, I've still resolved myself for when the time comes. Well, I've resolved myself for whatever that comes before it anyway. Aisha was taking care of Ni-san's kids even now. Even Sylphiana thanks her a lot for helping out. Now that I think about it, if I left the house then I would have to raise them alone. I'm worried about that. I wonder if I'd be able to do the job. Sylphy Nisan would probably say you'll be just fine, Norn-chan. Roxy Nisan would probably be as uneasy as me, and Eris Nisan would just say raise them however you want. I'm worried. Page 57 580. If you would be so kind to teach me about child rearing, I'll be glad. Leave that to me. Okay. Phew phew phew. I laughed. Aisha's smile made me somewhat happy and thus I laughed. That day I chatted with Aisha till late night. Chats that didn't hold any meaning or just idle complaints with no conclusion carried on endlessly. And then, the next day, I took my belongings and moved to Ruijerd-san's house. Page 58 580. Part 2. Rudy's perspective. Norn's and Ruijerd's marriage was to be performed in the Suitors village in Suitors style.
That's
the villagers gathered with
heartwarming.
each of their own cooking under the
I
full
like
moon
that.
and congratulated the bride and groom while having a feast
It
together.
was cool to see
I wasn't
that.
one of the villagers, but I still participated by bringing along my cooking and my family as if it was natural. Since we were Norn's family, they obviously couldn't say no. No one denied us. Rather, they all welcomed us. The cooking was prepared by Lilia and
Aisha
Aisha.
Norn
It seemed that Aisha
convo
held
is
some complex
pretty
feelings regarding Norn's
nice.
marriage. Ever since the marriage had been decided, she was seen quite often lying on the sofa rolling around, deep in thought and then getting scolded by Lilia. Which reminded me that a few days before the marriage, the two of them were talking about something till late night in Norn's room. I didn't know what they were talking about. But even she might have some things to think upon. Since it definitely wasn't like she wouldn't give her blessings to Norn. Even the cooking that was brought for the wedding saw no signs of shoddiness, instead she put all of her skills into making it. She collected the ingredients from Mealy's and Azura and made a huge fruitcake. We were worried whether or not the suitors would be delighted by something sweet, but then Roxy gave it her seal of approval. Well, it's possible that she just likes sweet things. Since it was pretty much Norn's most precious moment, all of the family members attended. The small kids Ars and Sieg were here as well, and of course Leo, Jiro, and B2. Not just the family, the perpetrator who made this marriage a reality, Orsted, too, was here stealthily hidden into a corner. Page 59
In the bushes.
Added to that,
He's
we invited
in the
Norn's friends
bush
from Sharia
again.
as well, who were happy to attend. The student council and Norn's underclassmen, after hearing about Norn's marriage, requested with their heads bowed that they be allowed to attend as well. In the open place of the Suitors village, the humans who were attending the marriage while shivering in fear was a pitiable sight to see the least, but Well, after seeing the happy and blessed Norn, their tension gradually wore off and they had enough composure to forsake to Norn when the banquet was reaching its climax. Yep, Norn looked happy. At home, or rather in front of me, Norn looked sullen almost all the time, but now that she was sitting beside Ruijerd, her face was floating with a bashful smile the whole time.
Sounds way more
Each time Norn
romantic
tried to
than
look at Ruijerd
Western
and Ruijerd, who sensed
style.
it, tried to look back.
Bro,
She quickly
I
looked downwards
know.
as her face got red like a
Orchid being
tomato.
in the bush
Her body was dressed
behind
in a
you,
traditional Orion
bro,
costume made
sounds
by
so
the silvered females.
romantic.
In front of plenty of cookery, her face grew red and a smile floated each time she saw Ruijerd. Also, it was good that we prepared a mealy-style wedding to include in the middle of the actual ceremony as a surprise. We pretended that a change of clothing was necessary and dressed up Ruijerd and Norn in snow-white clothing. By the time they returned, Cliff, who had hidden himself as a surprise guest, started reading the Mealy's ritual prayer. In the end, when the necklace prepared beforehand was put on Norn by Ruijerd, Norn's face went full red as Ruijerd went down on his knees only for Norn to kiss his forehead clumsily. Norn had a surprised face the whole time, but by the time it ended she was smiling in tears. That smile seemed to be incredibly happy. If this is not a blessing, then I don't know what is. Norn looked so beautiful. Aisha called that Norn beautiful. Was it her attire that she considered beautiful, or was it her happiness? I did not know, but Aisha was looking enviously at Norn. Page 6580. Your time will come too, Aisha. I won't be doing this.
Bro,
An immediate reply.
Annalise was probably in there somehow
For me,
too, you
I
know?
would like to send Aisha away in the same fashion as Norn, but... well, marriage isn't life, so I wouldn't mind either if
Lord
she didn't
knows
want
what
to.
they were doing.
Nevertheless, Norn was a bride now, huh? I'm
If
deeply moved.
Annalise in the
When we met
picture,
Amelie, she was so small
bruh.
and aggressive. After enrolling in school, she even confined herself in her dorm room.
I don't
A
want to
troublesome
think about
child,
it.
a hopelessly clumsy child, I had such impression of her, and yet before I knew she entered the student council, became a fine president and worked diligently, was idolized by many of her underclassmen and was now married. Key in. Reflexively, the inside of my nose became prickly and made a sharp noise. Point 1. Dear Paul Sama. Norn is incredibly beautiful, she has been raised into a good girl. Can you break out from your gravestone? No, there's no way you'd be able to. If not, then please come as quickly as possible. Ani-chan, don't cry at a time like this. I'm not crying. Sobs. Right. If you can watch her from afar, then why not at least say a few words to her? NH. The banquet was in full swing, so the attendees were giving their blessings to the bride and groom in order. Though there wasn't this kind of custom in Supert style. Cliff might have said something. Page 580. Norn was receiving their blessings with a smile. She was having such a happy time. Would it be fine if I approached her in such a time like this? I felt like it would be fine just watching her from afar. Would Norn be displeased about it? She won't. Really? Really? Won't you come with me? Why not go along with everyone? Well, it's not like I'm worried about that. I'm worried how I'm going to react. I'd absolutely end up crying. I would end up crying in Norn's precious moment. I'd end up making crying sounds ungracefully. Everyone would point at Norn's big brother as the one who cried at her wedding, a crybaby. No, that's fine, but just the other day I was being told by Ruijerd not to cry, so I didn't want to cry here of all places. I wanted to at least cry in Sylphy's lap when I reached home. Got it? Then let's go. But I must go. With everyone in tow, I approached Norn. When Norn saw us approaching, she tightly closed her lips for an instant but immediately turned it to a smile. She might have something to say. I wonder what. I'm scared. As I was thinking, Sylphy overtook me as I got cold feet and was the first to stand in front of Norn. Norn-chan, congratulations on your marriage. Thank you very much. Sylphy-ni-san. There will be times when uneasiness or tension happens between the two of you, but most of it will be manageable, so talk it through with Ruijerd-san properly and give it your best. Yes. I'll try my best. Page 580. Sylphy said that and gave a smile in return, then stepped aside. The next to come was Eris. Norn, congratulations. Yes, thank you very much. Eris-ni-san. Don't forget to do your daily sword practice, okay? Ruijerd is strong, but it'll come handy when you have to guard yourself. Yes, I'll make sure to carve it in my heart. Eris nodded in satisfaction and then stepped aside. And then moved to Ruijerd's side and started talking about something. I won't forgive you if you can't protect Norn. Or so she's saying. After Eris, Roxy came out in front. Norn-san, my deepest and most sincere congratulations. Thank you very much, Roxy-sensei. Stop calling me sensei now. No, make it the last time, so allow me the privilege of imparting you with some knowledge. People would say this and that about marriage between different races, but there's no need to give it any heed. If you act ordinarily every day, then people would come to admit it before long. Yes, sensei. After that, Lilia and Zenith were now in front. Miss Norn, my most sincere congratulations. Lilia-san, mother. Thank you very much. I think that I wasn't a pleasant existence for you, Miss Norn. Aisha made you sad on numerous occasions, but all the responsibility lies with me and I am to be blamed for. No, there's nothing like that. Lilia-san, you were my mother as well. Aisha too, is my sister. There were certainly some bad things, but I never really thought of it as your fault, but rather something that was ordinary. If you say something like that, then, Gasuk. You. Page 580. Lilia was keeping quiet but ended up crying anyway. Really, Lilia just keeps on crying these days. Zenith was gently brushing her back, but after a short while Zenith casually moved to Norn's side. Mother. Zenith smiled ever so slightly and took Norn's hand. With both hands, as if to cover up something precious, she tenderly clutched them. MMO mother. Zenith did not say anything. But it was transmitted. The feelings were transmitted to Norn and tears started spilling out in volume from both of Norn's eyes. I quickly understood that she was trying her best to not cry before.
Oh,
Mother,
fuck.
thank you. Very much.
Fuck. That's
You.
That's
for
too.
everything you've done until now. No longer could Norn make out proper sentences. By the time it was my turn, Norn's face was already all sloppy because of tears and dripping nose. Even though it was her precious moment, her marriage. Nii-san. I took out a handkerchief from my pocket at once and held it against Norn's nose. All right, go ahead and blow now. I can do it myself.
Old strong.
Norn snatched the handkerchief from me and blew her nose in it. After that, confused about what to do with the now dirty handkerchief, I took it from her and put it in my pocket. And then once again I faced her. Norn. Congratulations. Page 64 580. Nii-san. With her lips tightly sealed she looked up at me. I wonder what should I say. I had prepared to say something but I've completely forgotten all of it now. Nii-san, Thank you very much for up till now. I'm now happy. But I think that it was all because of you that I'm this happy right now. Norn said as I was hesitating. She said that she was now happy. I could tell it from seeing. No. It's because you worked hard, Norn. I didn't work hard. Even this marriage, you did all the work for it. If you hadn't worked hard then you wouldn't have said that you wanted to marry Ruijerd. Ruijerd is a soldier person or a child person. If Norn had stayed the same child she used to be, then this would have ended in complete failure. But I think that it's because of you, Nii-san. Thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. When Norn started to sob again, I took out the handkerchief from my pocket, but when I realized that handkerchief was all wet I was quickly presented with a different handkerchief from my side. It was Aisha. I took that handkerchief and wiped Norn's tears. Norn. Yes. I can't say it properly and most of the important things have already been said by others so I don't have anything else left to say to you but. Yes. Page 65 580. There will be hard times or painful times in the future but. Keep working hard and
my gosh, there's a lot of pages here. What the fuck?
Strangely enough, tears did not flow. I thought that I would definitely cry and I was moved to tears not too long ago but by the time I finished talking my tears had already withdrawn. I stood in front of Norn with only a proud feeling. Yes. And then, Norn stopped crying as well, with a huge smile on her face she nodded in agreement. Page 66 580. Part 3. And thus, Norn was now married. Ruijerd and Norn were a couple with a huge difference in their height and age but their compatibility was perfect, as such a child was born in just a year. A child with a face exactly like Norn's, green hair and a cute tail, having a gem on her forehead, a female Superd. That girl was named Luslia Superdia. When Orsted heard that name, he made an absurdly scary face. With an absurdly scary face, he smiled. Looking at that smile, which gave me goosebumps, I realized that it was the name that was in agreement with his memories. Page 67 580. Author's Q&A. Q. This is redundant. Wouldn't it be alright to include it in the main volume?
I already planned for Gisa to be gathering companions during the Cliff chapter and Right Redundancy chapter during the Orchestrating chapter. This is the kind of flow that I had planned, but time flowed a bit faster than I had hoped, and Gisa betrayed them at the end of the Cliff chapter, and we ended up wait a year. Yes. We'll wait a year. Yeah. Lucy's first day at school. Alright, well. You're gonna have to wait a year for me to go to the restroom, I guess. I'll be back in a quick sec, boys. I'm gonna put some music on. And you will have to wait for me just a little bit. I'll be back. Alright, I'm back. What's poppin'? Alright. Alright, let's continue.
Author's Q&A. Lucy's first day at school, first part. Part 1. Some time passed. Eris and Roxy safely gave birth to their children. Both of them were girls. Roxy's daughter was named Lily and Eris's daughter was named Christina. With this, we now had 4 daughters and 2 sons. Our house had become a little cramped. It was about time we gave some thought to remodeling while taking
4
family planning
daughters
into
and 2
consideration.
sons.
Furthermore,
Jeez, dude.
Lucy was now 7 years old. Now that she was 7, she could be called a first-year student studying in a primary school. The primary school was a place where kids of the same age learned about the fundamental knowledge that was essential for survival while cohabitating with other students. Of course, it would be beneficial if that knowledge was taught by the parents themselves. The most important keyword in a school was communal life. Humans are beings who live in groups. Most humans can't live alone. They are beings who live together while helping each other, loving each other and getting into fights from time to time. It's possible that those with the will to stay alone are out there, but they are probably a minority. A school is a place where one learns how to make colleagues or friends, how to interact with them and how fights occur. Page 7580. Nevertheless, a primary school-like system didn't exist in this Renault kingdom. It should be obvious because there was no compulsory education. Here, a school was considered to be a place where people go if they wanted to go. Even so, I thought that there was a need to go to school. Part of the reason was that I dropped out of high school in my previous life, but as for this life, I did learn a lot of things in the school of this world too. I got along with Zanaba, met with Cliff, Badagati, Nanahoshi, Ariel. And then married Sylphy. There was no doubt that it was because of my daily attendance to Renault Magic University that my human relations were now in such abundance. As such, I thought that there was a need to go to school, to let them go. As such, during last year's family council, that proposal was approved by more than half the members. Sylphy, Roxy, and Lilia were in agreement. Even though Eris said there's not really any need to go, she didn't strongly oppose it. Thus, it was decided that our children would start attending the university when they became 7. Though the other students enrolling wouldn't necessarily be in the same age group, it was decided with the thought that it would be beneficial to their future. And today was Lucy's first day attending school. From here on out, for 7 years, or possibly even more if she repeated a year or 2, this was the very first day of her school which she would be attending for a very long time. Is there anything that you've forgotten, Lucy? Nope. Lucy, wearing her oversized uniform and carrying a bag too big for her, was now standing in front of the entranceway. Everything that she had on was brand new. The beginner's staff and the robe contained within the bag, magic textbooks, even the lunchbox, everything was new. And it seemed that Lucy, with all her new things, was happily grinning while looking at herself in the mirror. Page 71580. As a result of that, she was somewhat careless, even to my words. Well, she did check those out many times over yesterday night, and there weren't that many belongings to begin with. So I guess it should be fine. But, isn't she forgetting that? Then shouldn't it be fine to remind her? Do you have your handkerchief? It's in my pocket. Pencil case. It's in my bag. Lunchbox. It's in my bag. My goodbye kiss. That's a no. That's a no. Impossible, that can't be. Never mind. Was there something else? Something which was easily forgotten. Like future dreams, aspirations, the truth. Rudy, it's gonna be fine. As I pondered, Sylphy came and patted on my back. Lucy is already a grown-up, so it's
He gets
fine.
a heart attack for
Grown
not
up.
getting a kiss.
She had
Goodbye.
certainly grown up.
That's
She was already 7 years old. Now that she was 7, she could do various things and do it alone.
That's the
Papa,
plan for
it's gonna
killing
be
Rudy.
fine. I'm gonna work hard. Page 72580. Lucy said while clenching her fist. That gesture was brave, lovely, and very worrying. If I was a kidnapper and looked at something like this, I would immediately steal her away. Although she had grown up, she still had some way to go. Lucy, don't follow any strangers no matter what they say, okay? Okay. If they forcefully try to take you away then shout out my name as loud as you can, okay? Okay. If they covered up your mouth and said that they'll kill you if you make a noise then ask them to read the letter I prepared, okay? Okay. Incidentally, I've written quite a bit for the kidnapper. I've written just who subordinate I am and what kind of people I have connections with. I've also written just what would happen if Lucy were to be hurt. It's possible that they might not be literate, but I've made necessary arrangements with the slave traders and asked them to socially lynch those who seem like they would kidnap my children.
Oh, fuck.
Those who would kidnap my children would be ostracized.
Oh, fuck.
Still, cause for concern was something that was common.
Shit.
Unpredictable situations could exist in any amount.
Shit.
I couldn't help but get worried sick that Lucy might get dragged into something like that. Lucy, if your friends at school bully you then tell it to your teacher. Okay. I don't think it'll happen, but if even the teacher bullies you, then tell it to Blue Mama or Vice Principal. Both of them stay in the staff room. Okay. If you think that you can't tell to Blue Mama or Vice Principal, then there's White Mama or Red Mama or Auntie Aisha or Granny Lilia or Granny Ellen Elize. Anyway, just consult someone. Of course, Papa is fine as well and Papa's friends too. Don't try to do things alone, okay? Okay AI. If you are being bullied by some other kid then. Page 73 580. I was suddenly grabbed at the nape of my neck and was pulled backwards. When I examined the situation, I saw Sylphy with an anger on her face. Lucy seemed to have become a little downhearted as well. Papa, I'll be fine, okay? Lucy said with a little uneasiness in her voice, her eyes upturned. I wonder if I ended up making her nervous. I should have told her more about a dream like school life. For example, to try her best to make 100 friends in school. But it's a serious matter. Though at times it would seem like there would be no one to help you from bullying, your ally would be lying in wait, somewhere around you. Try to believe in Lucy a little bit more. Okay. But yeah, that's right. We're sending the kid to school to raise her level of independence. I shouldn't be thinking about dealing with every single little thing. In time, even Lucy would grow up and then leave our house to become fully independent. Of course, I'm talking about way into the future, but we were sending her to school so that she could do that properly in the first place. That's right, this matter was decided by the whole family. Lucy, say that you're off. I'm off. Lucy said that and opened the door. She left the house cheerfully. Seeing that, I said take care while carefully watching over her. The ones who saw her off were me and Sylphy, Eris with Leo, Zenith, and Lilia. Roxy had already left for school. It seemed that some trouble came up at the mercenary group, and page 74 580. As such, Aisha left just as early. The rest of the kids were still sleeping as they were still small. I'm going for my sword practice. Well then, allow me to do the laundry. Then, I'll do the cleaning. While everyone left in small groups, I just kept staring at the door. The same as Leo. I'm sure our hearts are on the same wavelength. I'm worried. Perhaps Lucy had already gotten lost on her way. Though she walked the road to school along with Sylphy and Roxy quite often. But she's alone today. I was worried. As I thought, perhaps I shouldn't let a 7-year-old child walk alone. Such a cute little child should not be allowed to walk the roads alone. I should make a muscular bodyguard follow her. For example, someone with green hair, holding a white spear, who loves children. After that, comes teaching. Lucy had been given special lessons by Eris, Roxy, and Sylphy. It's not that she won't be able to keep up, but that we might have taught her so much that it would cause her to feel out of place. It's not like she's a raw diamond either. Though Vice Principal Gina's did say something like that, we still enrolled her as a normal student keeping in mind that a normal experience would be best for her. She even sat a proper examination. I did not know whether that would result into a good direction or a bad direction. I also had fears that she might be used as a guinea pig. Leo. Woof. Page 75 580. Leo replied to me with but a single word, and raised his head to stop me in my tracks as expected of our guardian deity. We both were dancing to the same rhythm. We didn't even need to exchange any words between us. Rudy. Don't you dare. As I put my hand on the door, I heard Sylphy's sharp voice coming from the back. On looking back, I saw an irritated Sylphy standing there with her hands on her waist. Didn't you promise just yesterday that you wouldn't do anything and just watch over? No, you're misunderstanding. Leo wants to go for a walk. As I said that, Leo turned on his tail, walked towards the hallway, and escaped to the children's room. This was treachery. He would protect the kids from outer enemies but wouldn't protect me from my wife. Listen, Rudy. As I was petrified on the spot, Sylphy gave out a sigh without removing her hands from her waist. I've told you before, but I think that I was able to grow up because I was separated from you, Rudy. You taught me magic, you taught me how to study, and making that as my basis, I learned a lot even after you were gone, even when I went to Ariel-sama after the teleport incident. Yeah. It's true, teaching someone all kinds of things and protecting them is good. But only having things given to you by someone else is not. People have to find themselves and know what they can and can't do. If someone is always supporting you, when the time comes to walk on your own, you won't be able to. Page 76 580. I was looking forward to this day. As Lucy's guardian, I would go to school together with her, ask the teacher to take care of my kid, and intended to show her around the school. For that reason alone, I took a holiday today. I requested Orsted to give me a day off. But, Sylphy insisted yesterday just like right now. That I mustn't be allowed to go along with her. That Lucy should be sent to school alone. She insisted upon that. That's why, okay. Just quietly keep on the lookout for now. Even if she made a mistake it'll only be for Lucy's own sake. Okay. I consented as well. Sylphy had been raising Lucy for 7 years. She of all people sent Lucy out with such confidence, that's why I must respect that too. It's bad if I just keep on dealing with things for her. Well, it's so worrying because I understand that. Lucy was a reliable kid. She was good at taking care of her little brothers and sisters, she was obedient, and I had heard that the neighboring kids yearned for her as well. In fact, she might just get used to school life even faster than someone like me. Then there was only one thing that I could do. I prayed so that Lucy had a fun time in school. My God resided in that school so my prayer should definitely get through. Then, I'll be going to meet Orsted-sama. Yeah. Got it? If there's something you need then tell me. But I still feel lonely. While thinking that I headed towards Orsted's office. Page 77 580. Part 2. All of that happened about 1 hour ago. And now I'm here. I mean, I know that Sylphy is right. Even Sylphy was able to grow because we left our house. That's unmistakably right. I was expressing my idle complaints. I had consented. If that's what Sylphy had decided then I had to abide by that too. Luckily, there were many acquaintances in the Magic University and danger was low as well. I had also heard that student order had improved quite
It's
a bit
hard to
because of Norn's
believe that
presidency.
Orsted's
The
just
mercenary group
like
led by Aisha had
doing
become quite big
small
due to which the
talk
whole
shit
town's order
like
had improved
this
as well.
now.
Yet, I was still worried. I had this indescribable fuzzy feeling. But, you know, Lucy is still 7 years old. She's so small yet has to go to school alone.
This stuff is
That's
just
well, I mean it's true
stuff
that I
with
went
the
to Eris's
scale,
place when I
yeah,
was 7 and started
everything's
exploring around my
fine.
village from age 5.
No worries,
But I
just
could at least see her off.
let's talk
right?
about Lucy's
Orsted
school
Sama,
life
what
now.
do you think? Orsted had a grim face. A face which questioned whether this matter was related to work or not. I might have mistaken him as someone to consult with. When given considerable thought I realized that he was still my boss.
Bro,
Not a
really
person who should be listening to my idle
this.
complaints. If the idle talk was related to Hitagama then it might be fine, but I guess lodging complaints about my family matters was not a good idea.
Yeah.
Page 78 580. Even Orsted might not know how to answer if he was suddenly asked about something like this. And Lucy was someone who was not within Orsted's field of knowledge.
Thinking so
I just
much,
thought that Orsted might understand somehow. This unbearable feeling of mine. As I was lost in thought, Orsted stood up. He could also be seen perking up his shoulders. Of course, I'd expect this as I've associated myself with Orsted for a long time.
Orsted sees it and tells him, like, if you go to the school, I will kill you.
It took a considerable amount of effort to anger him. You are foolish. He got angry. He's not angry, right? He looks angry. That's weird. I'm being scolded. Use this. The thing Orsted handed over to me was the black helmet. The spear curse reduction helmet. What am I supposed to with this? You're not worried about your daughter, you just want to go and see her, don't you? I see, that's right. I just want to go and see her. It's not that I'm worried about Lucy or not or anything. No, obviously, that's one reason as well, but I just want to see her introducing herself in the page 79 580. Classroom, quickly raising her hand trying to answer a question, tiptoeing in the library to get a book, and things like that. There was no Parents' Day in Magic University. I wanted to go and see Norn as well but couldn't. I wanted to watch Lucy at least. That wish of mine was very big. But, if I go and see her then Sylphy would get angry. When I said that, Orsted silently took off his coat. And then, put it on my shoulder. As if to say use this too. Just what am I supposed to do with the helmet and the
I did not
scope?
expect Orsted to just,
this
like, tell him, like, go,
freaking, like... I do not know what you are trying to say. Please explain it in a way that the foolish me can understand. Even though I want to go, I shouldn't. Please spare me that quick wit of yours. No wait, does that mean? Rudius himself mustn't cross that bridge, which means that it's fine if he doesn't. One's clothing determines one's position.
Orsted
So if the clothing changes, so does the position. And if the position changes, then the person changes too. I had the position of Orsted's right-hand man while I wore the grey robe. But what would happen when I wore the white coat and black helmet? I put on the helmet and wore the coat. The helmet was heavy and the coat was bulky but warm.
Just go away.
If I wore it for a long duration of time, my shoulders would probably get stiff. But that was only a trivial matter. I stood in front of the mirror. Page 8580. This is me, one. The one being reflected in the mirror was undoubtedly the dragon god Orsted. That's right, if I wore the black helmet and white coat then even I could become dragon god Orsted. If I were to go and was scolded then it's fine if Orsted goes. Everything turned out better than expected. No, it's different no matter how you look at it. I did not look like Orsted at all. My height was different and so was my breadth. My entire ambience was completely wrong to begin with. Theirs wasn't any strange and powerful atmosphere like the one that comes from Orsted. The being reflected in the mirror looked like an impersonator no matter how you looked at it. To the trained eye, this appearance would be found out as a sham at just one look. Won't they find out like this? They wouldn't be able to know that it's you. Well, that's true. Yeah, that's just how it was. It didn't have to be Orsted, it didn't even have to be me. Which meant that I should just put on the helmet
else would be able to get Orsted's
he's an amazingly bright gentleman.
cloak and
Orsted
helmet?
Thank you very much.
Who
Orsted
else?
recited himself in the chair with a tired
Eris?
expression. There's probably some documents that need filling out. I might have interrupted him during his work. Since I wasn't supposed to be here today. Well then, I'm off. Page 81 580. I went out of the conference room with an appearance similar to Orsted's. As I couldn't bear it any longer, I hurried to Magic University. Page 82 580. Part 3. I left the office in Dragon God style. It was a mighty fine weather outside. Fine weather appropriate for Lucy's first day at school. And I somehow felt stronger, probably because I was wearing these clothes.
But who would be dumb enough to pretend to be Orsted? Who would be dumb enough to take his helmet from him?
Orsted-sama, are you about to leave?
It has to be Rudius.
As I was thinking that, I was suddenly called out from the back of the office. When I looked around, I could see a young boy holding a large sword. Alexander Ryback. It was North God Kalman III. Don't tell me, did he hear my thoughts? Nah, that's not it. I feel like he's cleaned himself up a bit, but it's kind of like, only at the level of feeling stronger after watching Rocky. That so-called movie motivation. Where might you be heading today, Orsted-sama? Shall I accompany you? For a moment I thought he was mocking me. However, Alex's eyes were clear in all respects and his tone was sincere. Ah, thank you very much for the other day. To think that the North God style 4-foot form would have such an advantage. I never thought that you would be so knowledgeable about the North God style. It's clear to me just how inexperienced I currently am. Now that I recall myself during the Battle of Bihyrule, I might die from embarrassment. Page 83 580. Don't tell me he hasn't yet realized that I'm not Orsted? No, that can't be. Alec had been at Orsted's side constantly these days. He even lived in one of the basement rooms of the office. He had taken the role like that of a watchdog of Orsted. It would be troublesome if the watchdog mistook his master for someone else. Have you not realized yet? What have I not realized? No, when it came to the North God style,
like Orsted wouldn't be as pissed if someone took his clothes over his helmet. Or not his clothes, but his cloak over his helmet.
When I said that, Alec wore a puzzled face immediately after which it became a serious one.
His curse-reducing helmet.
Furthermore,
I think
he
that's
tilted
pretty
his head sideways
important.
and furrowed his brows. It was as if a question mark was floating around his head. This was truly a face of a person who hadn't yet realized it. It would be quite a feat if this was an acting. Please forgive my insolence. It seems I'm a bit dull as such I cannot understand. Really? Can't you feel that something might be out of place? Might it be the trivialities? Please forgive me, but I'm someone who doesn't pay much attention to minor details as such I might not be able to evade any traps or such, and I'm aware that is not a good thing, but I've been like this since birth, so. He began giving an explanation. Did he really not realize? My height was different, even my physique, and I wasn't really trying to imitate Orsted's voice or anything, my tone was different from his to begin with. Even though the curse had been reduced, you could still feel discomfort to some degree. Is this a joke? Really? The correct answer lies in the conference room of the office. I see, got it? Page 84 580. Alec said that and entered the office with a triumphant look. I thought of him as a sharp guy during the Battle of Bihyrule, but I wonder how he really was. It could be that his mind works differently during peaceful times. Yeah, that's right, even my concentration changes during battle. That may be it. But I've gotten a little worried that someone like him is left alongside Orsted. Page 85 580. Part 4. When Alexander entered the office, his eyes met with the receptionist named Faria Steer. While looking at Alexander and pondering whether she should ask or not, she finally opened her lips after a moment of hesitation. Excuse me, Alexander-sama. What is it, Faria-san? I'll be going to find out this correct answer that lies in the conference room, so please make it short. Rudia-sama had just now left the premises wearing Orsted-sama's clothing, but does he intend to do something? Upon hearing that, Alexander made a very surprised face. Rudia-sama wearing Orsted-sama's clothes. Alexander couldn't even think about doing something like that. Imitating Orsted's clothing style was something which was absolutely dreadful to him. And at the same time, he gulped down his own saliva. The reason why Rudius was wearing Orsted's clothes didn't even require him to think that much. He thought that something needed to be done which could only work with Orsted's clothes. Possibly a decoy or something. He thought that Rudius intended to lure the enemy out while in disguise as Orsted and arrest the enemy. In the meantime, Orsted would be able to achieve an objective. Which meant that the enemy was so strong that one couldn't fight the said enemy without Orsted. For example, one of the overlooked world powers, Technique God, or someone who Alexander had unpleasant memories with, Death God Randolph. Or one of the demon-slaying 3 heroes, Armored Dragon King Perogius Dola, or possibly North God Kalman II, Alec's father, Alex. Page 86.
Draw the person out in the public area known as the Magic University.
It was possible that victory could be assured if he were to equip the magic armor, but then he wouldn't be able to accomplish his job as a decoy. Even Alexander knew about Rudius' bravery.
Draw him out to the place where
Alexander knew that Rudius' combat power was inferior to his. However, those movements he saw in Bihyrule Kingdom still remained in his memory vividly. That power to face an enemy far stronger than yourself with simple honesty. That was something Alexander knew well. It was courage. Rudius was a hero who had been acknowledged by Adaferidov herself. And then, he realized that this was the correct answer. Faria-san, please keep that matter confidential. Why yes. Faria Steer's neck inclination was gradually coming up to its regular position, but Alec paid it no heed and put his hand on the door to the conference room. He prayed that he would be granted the honor by Orsted to fight alongside that hero someday. While burying those feelings deep within his heart, he entered the room. Though it was only a few minutes after that Alec would ask about the correct answer from Orsted himself. Page 87 580. Chapter 5. Lucy's first day at school, last part. Part 1. I chose a route and started walking, a route with the least people possible. And yet, I felt like I was attracting attention. It was probably because I was currently in disguise. Something called one's imagination. But even so, others did not have much interest. No, I still felt the surroundings' gazes. But that should be obvious. Orsted had been using the office on the outskirts of town for a while now. There weren't many people who had seen him in person, but there were plenty who knew of this appearance of his. A black helmet and a white cloak. Right now, my outfit was the same as that of Orsted's trademark. Walking through the town like this, it was natural I attracted attention. In fact, without the curse, I might be giving a favorable impression to the townsfolk. Maybe I should try the main street. Doing good things to give someone a better image, like in the old days. The main street was closer to the school too. Yep, that's good. Killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Improving Orsted's reputation would be a plus for me as well. Right, next time I should propose a Dragon God festival where everybody dresses up in black helmets and white cloaks and dances in ecstasy. Page 88 580. With that in mind, I started moving towards the main street. What? And, in that instant, I quickly turned around and hid myself. I had glimpsed a familiar red-haired person in the main street. And with that red-haired person was the figure of a large white dog. And on the dog's back were 2 children. They were Eris and Leo. And on Leo's back, Lara and Ars.
Like, Eris,
Leo,
shut the fuck
you
up!
too, Tyler. Even though you ran away from a walk with me, you went out with Eris. No, it was different for me. That was a farce of a walk for my own satisfaction. What Eris and Leo were doing was territorial scouting. But what do I do now? I never thought I'd encounter Eris now and here of all places. No, I could probably talk my way past Eris. Like saying we could go visit Lucy together. But how would I go about explaining this outfit? She wouldn't immediately try and stab me, right? I'm also worried about the kids. Right now, I was doing something I obviously shouldn't. I broke my promise with Sylphy.
What a
Should my children
tragedy.
be allowed to see this pathetic side of their father?
Eris stabs
The answer is no.
Rudius
Now that I gave it more thought,
while he's
it really wouldn't be a good
impersonating
idea.
Orsted.
I even went to the
Because she
trouble of a
knew it
disguise.
was an imposter.
I should just go back home.
Really
I made it
sussy
this far through a
baka.
lapse in judgment, but wouldn't waiting at home with
Fucking
Sylphy
hell.
and greeting Lucy when she comes back be the better option? Page 89
That's
580.
terrible.
But I wanted to see Lucy in her
What
hour
a
of triumph.
tragedy.
I know it's selfish, but it's different from what Sylphy said. I definitely wasn't doing this because I didn't trust Lucy. And it's not so I could help her out from behind the scenes. I promise. I swear to God. Even if she looked as if she was about to cry, I wouldn't lend a hand. At home, I'd properly hear the story from her and only then would I help her out and instruct her. Nice one, Rudius buddy. That's the line. That's the line that wouldn't break my promise with Sylphy. Though I had decided on things on my own, without consulting with Sylphy first, but as long as I kept that promise, I wouldn't really be going back on her words. But still, after all of this is over, I'll properly tell her and apologize. It was actually because I wanted to see Lucy in class that I went to look. I'm sorry, I can't hold myself back. Is that alright? Can I do it? Can she get angry if I am honest? Alright. Good boy, Rudius. Woof. Woof. In any case, it seemed that Leo had noticed me. His nose was twitching and he was looking in my direction. What is it? Eris noticed too. It's not like it's a problem if I'm found, but explaining this getup would take a while. Getting held up would also be a pain. Let's take a detour. Whoever's hiding there. Come out. But it was already too late, I was already found out by Eris. These clothes stood out too much. Now then, what to do? Do I go out or not? If I do, how do I explain it? No but. Yes. There's still quite a distance between us. She shouldn't be able to clearly see me yet. Page 9580. I showed myself from the waist up. Eris had her hand on her sword and Leo was wagging his tail. And on top of that, Lara, on top of Leo, and R sitting as if hugging her, were also looking at me. The two of them were looking at me blankly, their gazes pure. Orsted. Eris looked confused and removed her hand from her sword while I turned around. Nonchalantly. With movements as if to say that I just coincidentally came across you on the roadside, nothing to worry about. Wait just a minute. TCH. Eris called me to a halt. Was my cover blown? Eris was a sword king. A warrior who went almost toe-to-toe with the former sword god. Looking at my demeanor, you could tell in an instant that I'm not Orsted. No, I'm just imagining things. It's fine. Let's go, Leo. But as soon as I stopped, she said that, turned around and started walking. Leo was glancing in my direction but he didn't chase after me and followed Eris. The plan was a success. My eyes suddenly met with Lara's and R's on top of Leo. The dazed Lara and the puzzled R's. They watched me from Leo's back. As if they were sending me off, I left that place. Page 91 580. Part 2.
No fucking shot. She thought that was Orsted. No fucking shot. No shot, bro. Yeah, she has to have known, right? Oh my god. It's like, oh, brother. Let's just go.
I arrived at the school. I avoided the front gate, climbed the wall and breached the compound.
You're the one talking
then
to
aimed for the
Sylphy
classrooms.
later,
I may
not
not
me.
have participated in many classes, but I did seriously attend the school for many years. I did know where the first-year classrooms were. I avoided students getting taught in the schoolyard and those walking during the intervals, heading for the first-year classrooms. This place hadn't changed much either. It hadn't even been a decade since I graduated, but it really felt like that. Though the number of unfamiliar students had increased.
She
It
is
also felt like there had
stupid,
been an
so
increase in elves
maybe
and
she
beasts
thought
and
it was
dwarf races since my
Orsted,
time as a
but-
student. There also seemed to be a large number of demon races. I heard from Roxy in the dining room that the main members of the student council were from the elven race, and the next chief of the dwarf race, so that seemed to be reason. It was something that couldn't be seen when Ariel was president. The amount of other races had increased, but the fact that they were not arrogant anymore was most likely due to the remains of Norn's presidency. Basically she simply did not permit any type of racial discrimination. And that was what caused the current atmosphere of the school. A small portion of the nobility of the magic triumvirate apparently did not approve, but they are like that, proud by nature. I was walking down the hallway pondering about such things, when suddenly, while I was
Or
turning a
be
corner,
like, don't be racist.
page
I
92
am a
580.
building.
Almost immediately, someone came from around the corner as well. That person was being followed by 5 students. No, rather than being followed it was more like being surrounded. When I said being surrounded, it gave off a bad feeling, but it was basically a popular student walking to class with other people. I could see some of the surrounding students holding notebooks, it seemed that there was something they didn't understand and were asking about it. It's a very admirable thing to do. Yep, that's right, that person would be able to answer anything. And what came out from that person's mouth would undoubtedly be the truth. Well, sometimes that person might be wrong, but that mistake also includes the truth. Those who ask will receive revelation. Liberation. Let those words resound within you, grasp their meaning, and any may attain strength. O students who earnestly accept those words, ponder their meaning.
Yeah. Similar to how Leo probably recognized it was Rudius, Eris probably found out based off of his scent. Yeah. Yeah. She knows everything about him. Very familiar scent, yes, yes. I understand that height and that smell and that look anywhere. Only Rudius would act that way. Only Rudius would smell that way. It has to be Rudius 100%.
And think about how you must live. Oh students, right now, all of you are in bliss. Orsted. That person, with suspiciousness lurking beneath those slightly sleepy eyes, looked up at me. Several seconds later, those eyes opened up wide. No, Rudy. It's Rudy, isn't it? It's Rudy,
She
right.
also knows that she
As
doesn't want
expected
to
of Roxy.
fuck with Sylphy.
That keen insight of hers wasn't something I could fool. How did you know? But I asked nonetheless, because
Doesn't
of
want
I
to
couldn't help
deal
but seek
with
the truth.
the bullshit
Though
that
it was clear to me that it was the wisdom of Roxy.
freaking
I asked whether she had reached the truth without any real reason.
spew
It's obvious,
at
the only person
frickin'
with the courage to wear that,
Rudius,
imitate Orsted,
man.
would have to be Rudy. There was a reason. As expected of Roxy. Page 93 580. Is Orsted
About to
Sama aware
give
of
the
the situation?
smack. About
Yes,
to lay a
this was a
smack
suggestion
down
from
on
him
Rudy
after all.
after this.
I see. Then that means that there's some reason for it? Roxy nodded her head and began scrutinizing my outfit. I felt like she had some kind of convenient misunderstanding. But is that alright? Should I deceive Roxy? Should I lie to Roxy for a momentary period of selfishness? Is that fine? Rudius, is that fine with you? No, there's no important meaning to it. There's no way that's fine. I cannot lie to
No,
Roxy.
someone already found
Lying to
out,
Roxy
man.
has a different implication than lying to Sylphy or Eris. The thought that lying to Roxy in an important situation is something is wrong, that can't be helped. If I lie here, the next instant, I will come flying in from 20 years in the future and hit myself with a stone cannon. Or this very second, I, having lost my identity, will suddenly have my limbs melt and turn into an indeterminate existence. Then why are you wearing that? Well, I wanted to see Lucy. Wanted to see? What about your promise with Sylphy? I'm not secretly helping her out or being overprotective. It's just that, I just wanted to see what she was like in class. While I flusteredly said that, Roxy silently looked at me, with reproachful eyes. The surrounding students too were perplexed at such a sudden development. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I understand. Page 94 580. But, Roxy relaxed her gaze. As long as you honestly watch over her without lending a hand, I'll pretend I didn't see you. I just saw that Orsted had simply come to the school to inspect it. Sensei. Just this once. Of course. When I get home, I'm going to apologize to Sylphy too. That's for the best. I'm pardoned. I am no longer any match for her. From now on, I will bow 3 times in Roxy's direction, 5 times a day. Well then, I have to teach these children until the next class begins. By the way, do you know where Lucy's classroom is? Yes. Of course. Well then. Roxy said that, gripped my hand once tightly and continued down the hallway. The student saying who was that just now? Followed after her. She's quite popular. It's only natural. She's my teacher after all. Alright. After I had once again fired myself up, I set off down the hallway. Page 95 580. Part 3. I arrived at the classroom. I was peeking into the classroom from the hall, but then I thought that looking from the hall wasn't a very good idea and circled around. If a rumor that Orsted was peeking begins to circulate, our company's reputation would be affected. While pondering such things, I made a partitioning screen near the window of classroom. Near a window which was not visible from the surroundings. Wait. Couldn't I have just claimed that I was doing a classroom inspection? Roxy said I could after all. I felt like I could have gone and gotten permission to watch. If I had explained it to Gina's, he probably would have done something like that. I messed up. Well, I guess it's fine. As long as I can see Lucy, I'll be satisfied. While thinking that, I activated my clairvoyance and looked inside. Several desks were lined up in the classroom. Students fit to be called first years were sitting in rows. Most were over 15-year-old adults. There were some 10-year-old kids too, but there was basically nobody as young as 7. There were some kids that looked about 7, but they were mostly from the dwarf race. Normal humans, demon
Aye.
race, elf race, dwarfs and beast races. Peaceful people, arrogant people, kind people, there were plenty of them. Sitting in the back of the classroom was someone who looked like an adventurer, giving off an eerie vibe.
Understandable.
Wouldn't getting involved with him get you bullied? No, no matter who they are, they wouldn't pick on a 7-year-old child. But where's Lucy? Ah, there she is, in the front row. As expected of my daughter. Sitting right in the front row full of
Yeah,
motivation.
probably.
Page
Sylphy
96
probably
580
could have predicted this.
is what I thought, but it
would
seems her desk
happen.
was too big. Her desk was so big it's hard to see the front. She's seriously listening to the teacher's words and taking notes, but because of the size of the desk she looks like she's having a hard time. After she gets home, it might be good to let her carry a cushion or something to sit on. Sitting next to her was a girl of about 10, most likely a dwarf. No, from the feeling she gave off, she seemed human. From the way her hair was arranged, most likely a noble. She occasionally talked to Lucy while looking at her own magic textbook. She probably didn't think that taking notes was the norm. Lucy looked at the girl's magic textbook with a serious face and said something while pointing. Because she was whispering, I couldn't really hear her, but she seemed to be teaching her something. She seems to have already made a friend of a similar age. Have they become friends? It's still only the first day of class and the teacher didn't seem to have any intention of teaching anything too significant. Looking at the blackboard I could see that they're starting from the basics of the basics. Lucy had already learned this stuff years ago. An easy victory. Sensei. Is what I thought, when Lucy raised her hand. Yes. Aggregate magic power isn't decided the moment you're born, it increases when magic is used during childhood. I think what you just said is wrong. Compared to what's taught in schools, what Sylphy and Roxy taught her was slightly different. But I feel like it might have been better if she had left it unsaid. Having their own failings pointed out isn't something teachers like very much. What's your name? It's Lucy. Lucy Grere. Page 97 580. Grere. Which meant you're Roxy Sensei's daughter. Yes. Right, you must have received a special education since you were young. The eyes of the teacher shone. This teacher, I don't want to imagine it, but he isn't about to disrespect Roxy, is he? He wouldn't disrespect a parent in front of their daughter, would he? I had decided that I would hold back today, I had decided that, but starting tomorrow, your way to home might become a danger zone, you know? It's true that theory is one explanation. It's true that may have been the case for your father and mother. It could also have been the case for your father's apprentice, Juliet Dano. But whether or not it's reliable has yet to be confirmed. Your father, mother, and Juliet Dano may have been special cases. Or it may not apply to magic and beast races. It may just be that your father and Roxy are mistaken. There has not been any significant investigation. I will not engage in such research. Therefore, I will teach aggregate magic power remains the same throughout one's life. Because that is what I believe. The teacher spoke in a torrent of words. In order to persuade Lucy, or maybe to persuade himself. Lucy listened to that with a serious face. Students, I'd like to hear it from you too. From here on out, you students will study a variety of things. In magic and otherwise. In school and perhaps after graduation, you will study. While you are at this school, we, the pioneers of the art of magic, will teach you all kinds of things. You, as students, may believe in those teaching or not, it is your choice. When things have been proven as wrong, we will admit our mistakes. And if you do prove a mistake in our teachings, it will be you who is teaching us. And if it is what you are saying that is truly correct, we will consent.
Kratos
thinking with high flexibility. It didn't seem like he was a bad teacher.
Be careful
in
what
fact,
you say now,
he seemed like a good teacher. That is all. Lucy, do you have any further questions? None.
The deep
Thank you very much.
Page
98 580. Good. Please be seated. I will continue with the class. The teacher gave a hearty laugh and Lucy sat down. And the applause burst out from the class. Lucy looked backward surprised, her face became red and she looked down. It's all right, Lucy. You just said something correct. Putting aside whether you're truly correct, those who think you are giving you applause. So raise your head. And as I thought that, the girl hesitantly reached out and pet her head and said something. To which Lucy looked up and gave a big smile. Please get along with my daughter. It's okay to fight, just get along with her. Page 99 580. Part 4. After that, I continued to watch Lucy's classes for a while. There were some good and bad teachers. But Lucy didn't hesitate and continued to berate the teachers with questions and doubts. The teachers answered, avoided the questions and occasionally pointed out her mistakes, and class continued like that. Lucy stood out. A 7-year-old girl willfully motivated to take class was quite rare. During break, while Lucy was eating her lunch, she was surrounded by quite a crowd, and by evening Lucy was already quite popular. They were surrounding Lucy and asking her all kinds of questions. About her parents, her family, where she lived, and about herself. She was without a doubt popular. Some among them were probably just trying to butter up to my daughter. But that's fine. You can only meet a person once, the starting point may have been self-interest, but there are all kinds of ends. Life is long, so it's better to let her seldom associate with bad children. Ha. The last class ended. I was satisfied. I was able to learn Lucy's daily life at school. Of course, I wasn't worried. She was Sylphy's daughter and had been properly taught by her, Eris and Roxy. There were no worrying factors. No, well, if I did have a worry, it would be that she was my daughter. Spending every day in the corner of the classroom with her head down on her desk was a possibility. No, realistically, that wouldn't have happened. From here on out, there'll probably be plenty of painful things, but it'll probably be fine. Page 100 580. After this she'll go to school every day and I'll be content with hearing her stories during dinner each day. While remembering what I saw today, I'll be able to eat rice smiling. I guess I'll go home now. For now, I'll return the cloak and helmet to Orsted. While thinking that, I removed the mud wall made partitioning screen by rescinding the magic. Standing on the other side of the mud wall was a single woman. White hair and a slender body. Pants that looked easy to move in and a sleeveless top. The white arm extending from her shoulder, her hands placed on her hip, and a face with a mix of anger and disappointment. It was Sylphy. Ahem. Do you need something? I tried my best to mimic Orsted. Rudy, what are you doing here? Of course, it was futile. No, Sylphy-san, what are you doing here? Lara said that she saw her father hiding his face in a weird outfit while she was out for a walk. Indeed. It was Leo. He betrayed me. He didn't see me, he confirmed it with his nose. Or maybe because Orsted's scent was mixed in, rather than Leo, Lara noticed. Leo and Lara can understand each other after all. No wonder Lara was looking my way. Going as far as to wear that. Page 101 580. Sylphy's shoulders were shaking. She was very angry. Sylphy gets crazy when she's angry. I can't say specifically how. I can't say it, but whenever she gets angry or is sullen, I'm generally the one in the complete wrong and I'm pierced by reproachful eyes by everyone in the family. Everything becomes very hard. And for at least a week, I'll be spending the night alone. Can you really not trust Lucy and I that much? Tears started flowing from Sylphy's eyes. Gloomy. This is a gloomy person. A gloomy person, not an angry one. For now, I kneeled in front of her right then and there. No, that's not it, it's not like that. I just wanted to watch Lucy in all her glory. I wanted to see her in class, asking the teachers questions. I wanted to watch her diligently studying. You know, cause I haven't really been here very much while she was growing up. During my flustered explanation, Sylphy looked at me with her tear-stained face. Really? It is. It's just, I couldn't hold back anymore. I had intended to tell you after it was over. That's a lie, isn't it? It's true. I had intended to apologize to you. You wanted to see Lucy in class that much. Yes. I said that and Sylphy put her hand out and helped me up. She had already stopped crying. Then I'm in the wrong here, because even though you only thought about just watching and went so far, I forbade you to even look. No, you did nothing wrong. I had agreed to it beforehand after all. Yeah. You did. Page 102 580. As we were talking and such, Sylphy's gaze suddenly raised up. The look on her face said she messed up. When I turned around, I understood the reason. Before we noticed, the students were already looking at us through the classroom window. And with them, was obviously, Lucy. Lucy looked at the both of us with a somewhat sullen face. Page 103 580. Part 5. Today, I made friends with a girl called Belinda-chan. In the end Sylphy, Lucy, and I ended up making up and going home together. Holding Lucy's hands, the three of us were lined up. I thought she would get mad that I came but she wasn't. One by one, she explained all the fun things that happened today in school. You know, Belinda-chan is the daughter of a minister of the Renoa kingdom. She's still little, but she's really smart, so that's why she came to school.
Laura's
she says she's going to become the best in the school and make her father notice her.
Okay.
Really? That's amazing. And guess what, the first class was with Blue Mama. At first, everyone made fun of her and I almost got mad, but then Blue Mama, she showed us a little bit of magic and everybody was like wow. And then Blue Mama said, well, it's up to you whether or not you listen to my class. She was so cool. Why don't you tell that story to Blue Mama? I'm sure she'll be happy. The plan was thrown out of whack but that in itself was a good thing. Holding Lucy's hand, walking along with Sylphy. Walking along in a line, blocking the path probably isn't a good thing, but what does it matter? This was my city. Did you have fun at school,
This
Lucy?
was my
Yeah.
city.
Lucy nodded with extreme happiness.
It is
When I saw that, I
mine.
thought
The
that there was nothing to
mafia,
worry about.
mine. The school,
Papa.
mine.
Lucy was
Everything,
fine, right?
mine.
As if reading my mind, Lucy said that. Page 104 580. Yeah, you were just fine.
I am the
Good girl.
king.
As expected of Papa's daughter, right? Ahaha, way more amazing than Papa. Lucy was outstanding. No matter how you look at her, she's outstanding. Compared to her father who's not alright at all. A guardian was necessary. By the way, Rudy. Suddenly, Sylphy raised a finger. How long are you going to keep wearing that? I looked down at myself. A thick white coat and a black helmet. Up until now I've been fake worsted. I'll return it tomorrow. Yeah, right. It won't be a problem tomorrow. I didn't say I'd have it back by the end of the day, and worsted isn't in any rush. But still, this cloak, the fabric sure was nice. It felt similar to a red dragon's pelt. If I asked Aisha, would she know? By the way, Lucy. While I was thinking that, a question came from my mouth. It was a small question, for the sake of confirming something. What is it, Papa? It's a problem. What's the color of my hair? This question's definitely wasn't because I didn't trust her. It's just to make sure. Page 105 580. Brown. Correct. Lucy's smart. I can expect good things from you in the future. As expected of my daughter. Geez, don't make fun of me. As I was laughing at the sullen Lucy, I happily walked down the path. But Rudy, you broke your promise, so I'll have you bear with it for 3 days. Okay. I'll have to bear with it for a little while, but I'm happy. Page 106 580. Part 6. The next day. An odd rumor began circulating around the town. Orsted was aiming for Lucy. It's probably because I was walking around dressed like that. Rumor lasts for only 75 days. I obviously knew that it's groundless, and since Sylphy and the rest of my family knew that too, it was fine. While thinking that, when I went to Orsted to return the coat, Orsted was glaring at me with a scary face, and I had to come up with an explanation. But that's a different story. Orsted's coat, the material is the pelt of an ancient white dragon. It carries an absurd amount of magic power, and possesses high physical and magical defense. It possesses self-restoration against aging and damage. Because the ancient white dragon is now extinct, it's a unique item. Page 107 580. Chapter 6. Lucy's family. Lucy's perspective. My name is Lucy Grere. I'm the firstborn daughter of the Grere house. I have a big family.
I think
I have 3
Radius
mamas,
could have
3 small
used
sisters,
that
3 small
cloak,
brothers, 2
but
grannies, 2 aunts, and 3 pets. There are 16 people in
whatever.
total. It's a big family. Let's start with my
Nah,
mom.
don't give it to
I have
him.
3 mamas. They are white-haired mama, blue-haired mama, and red-haired mama. White-haired mama is the one who gave birth to me, and the first to become Papa's wife. Papa said that mama is the youngest and the most spoiled. White-haired mama is a talkative person and she always said this. It's important to make friends, okay? And you must never bully the weak, okay? She kept persuading me that it's important to make friends. Blue-haired mama is Lara's mama, and the second wife of my papa. Papa said that she looks small but she's the oldest, and he relies on her the most. Blue-haired mama is quite a reserved person, but she did say that. Live however you want, if you don't understand something then just ask someone. She never persuaded me about anything, but she knew everything and always answered anything I asked of her. Red-haired mama is Aru's mother, and the third wife of Papa. Papa said that she looks the oldest but she's actually very immature. Red-haired mama never spoke much but she did say that it's important to protect someone. For that reason you must become strong. Page 108-580. Red-haired mama said that and disciplined me as such. I think that I have to follow the teachings of my three mamas. I have to make friends, and in order to protect said friends, I have to become stronger. But I must never bully the weak. And if I'm troubled about something then I should ask Blue Mama about it. If I do, there won't be any troubles, and I'll be praised as well. Papa too, will praise me saying you're so smart, Lucy. As expected of the elder sister. I have 6 siblings in total. The oldest after me is my younger sister, Laura. She's a very kind kid. Her hair is similar in color to that of Blue Mama and her long hair stays in one single braid. She's quite strange too, and is often seen talking with blonde-haired Granny and our pet, Beat. Though both Beat and Granny don't talk at all, she's the only one doing the talking. Since she's like that, staying absent-minded most of the time, when she goes out to play, she gets bullied by neighborhood kids as they try to pull on her braid. Though I immediately go out to help her, she isn't really bothered about it to begin with, so it's kind of a letdown. She likes her naps and tends to get on Leo's back to sleep there in peace. After that is my younger brother, Arus. He's a brave boy. His hair is similar in color to that of Red Mama, though it's short, cut and evened up. He's precocious and a naughty kid but he tries to protect me and Lara all the same. I'm sure that he's trying to do the same thing as me, trying to follow her mama's teachings. Red Mama expects a lot from him, as such he's been running and practice swinging the sword almost every day. He's close with Aunt Aisha and always looks delightful whenever he's near her. Then comes the youngest brother in my family, Sieg. In simple words, he's a crybaby. He totters behind Arus and starts crying if he's left behind too much. At that time, I scold Arus. In doing so, Arus takes Sieg's hand and the two of them get up on Leo's back. When Sieg tries to climb on Leo, Lara moves back a bit and lets him take the forward. And then, hugs Sieg tightly from behind so that he doesn't fall off and ends up falling asleep peacefully. Page 109-580. Actually, I know one trait of Sieg that no one knows yet, he's actually very strong. He can pick up really heavy boxes with much ease. I do have one more younger brother, namely Clive. He's the same age as Arus, though he's not my real brother. He's the child of white-haired Mama's grannies. According to Mama, he's someone like a cousin to me or so it seems. I don't know why he's called as such but I deal with him as my younger brother anyway. He seems to have a good relationship with Arus, whenever he drops by for a visit he talks with him the most. It seems he likes me quite a bit, he clings to me a lot and whenever I pat his head, he smiles shyly. My youngest sisters have just been born so I don't know much about them as they are still very small. But I'm sure they will turn out as good girls in the future. I'm the older sister of all these little brothers and sisters of mine. Since I'm the oldest so I must act properly, or so I've heard countless times from my mamas. I think that I'm doing just as I'm told. My little sisters and brothers are all cute too, so I do want to protect them. I also have 2 grannies. The blonde-haired granny is Papa's mother. Her name is Zenith-san. She was a really lovely person once but now she can't talk, even having a conversation with her yields no reply from her. She always looks absent-minded and is seen together with Beat in the garden a lot however, when I feel sorry or get angry, she caresses my head for some reason. She's a very mysterious granny. The brown-haired granny is Aunt Aisha's mother. Her name is Lilia-san. It seems that she was brought along to serve Grandpa's house as a maid at first, but acts just like how a maid would up to this day. The 3 mamas are very grateful and tip their hats off to this granny, but for some reason, in the past I wasn't sure just why she was my granny. Once, when I was walking in town, I heard someone saying a maid is someone from the lower classes, someone to push around for work. And when I tried saying that back at home, red-haired mama got really angry and I got scolded. She slapped my butt until it got completely red and told me to reflect upon what I said by throwing me out the house for the night. When page 110-580. I was snoring, huddled together with Leo. Brown-haired Granny was the one who let me inside the house. At that time, Granny told me what actually happened. And then, I learned on that day that even though she's a maid, she's still my granny and she shouldn't be pushed around to work. I also have 2 aunts. Both of them are still quite young, and when I call them aunts they get angry, but an aunt is an aunt. Although to me, they are like elder sisters. The older aunt is the daughter of the blonde-haired granny, and the younger sister of Papa. Her name is Norn-san. She's a person who always works hard, plays with me a lot, and told me a lot of things. I like this aunt the most. I wish to become someone like her in the future. Though she got married not long ago and has already left the house. She rarely visits and even when she does, she gets into argument with the younger aunt. It looks like they are on bad terms but they can be seen laughing while quarreling often, and there are also times when they look like they are having fun. The younger aunt is the daughter of brown-haired Granny, and Papa's half-younger sister. Her name is Aisha-san. Similar to brown-haired Granny, she always wears maid clothing and manages most of the housework. Whenever I need help with something in this house, she's the one who helps me most of the time. She has basically taught me cooking, laundry and anything that's house-related. Mama said that Aunt Aisha can pretty much do anything and she's very good at what she does. It seems she also helps out with Papa's work. And yet, she gets scolded by brown-haired Granny from time to time. It's a mystery. We have 3 pets. The big white dog, Leo, is a sacred beast. He is very smart and understands what we say to him. It feels like he's watching over us all. Papa said to rely on him if anything bad ever happens. His favorite is Lara, and sticks to her most of the time inside the house. Page 111-580. Armadillo Jiro is Blue Mama's vehicle. He has a timid personality. When scolded he immediately shows his stomach or rolls up into a ball. But if something happens when we're leaving, he growls to intimidate anyone. He too, in his own way, tries to protect us. Treant Beat is the watchful protector of Aunt Aisha's vegetable garden. Since it is a plant monster, I really don't know what he's thinking, but he's often seen together with blonde-haired Granny and Laura. He's ruthless towards anyone who may lay waste to the crops in garden. It's not a rare sight that we get to see it catch small birds which try to eat the seeds of Papa's favorite rice. Those birds in the end become its nutrients. It's a little scary, but it never attacks family members. On the contrary, when we approach it, it lets us have a fruit. It is too, a family. 16 people. I have a lot of members in my family. I have lots of mama, and younger brother and younger sisters. But Papa is alone. He's the only one alone. I love Papa a lot. It seems like I tended to avoid him since I was a small child. Papa's odor gives me a peace of mind. Sometimes his beard scrapes me a bit, but I like that too. Papa doesn't let me touch his beard much. When it gets a bit muzzy, and I try to touch it, he grabs my hand and says sorry, I'll just go and shave it now. And leaves for the bathroom. Though I think it's fine, but Papa may think something otherwise. It's a pity that he doesn't let me touch his beard much, but I don't dislike that part of him at all. But, it's just that. I think Papa doesn't really expect much from me. I sort of think that way. He cares for me, even loves me a lot, but I think that he doesn't expect much from me. Surely, it's because Papa is an amazing person. Yep, that's right. I don't know much, but I can somehow understand that Papa is an amazing person. When Papa was as old as me, he could already use Saint class magic, and far from attending school, he was already at a position where he could teach. When he was 5, he went around playing in town or park, greeted everyone that he met, but all of those people know about Papa and respect him quite a bit. Even the most conceited ones end up praising my Papa. Page 112 580. I know that my mamas are amazing as well, but I knew since childhood that Papa is a special case. That Papa of mine, not expecting much from me.
Go back and
from us
study,
is understandable.
dude.
I think it can't be helped. But I want
You said you were only gonna be here for a little bit, bro. Go back and study. You have exams.
So, I will receive a lot of praise from my
mamas. What the hell are you doing here?
But I want Papa to praise me too. I'm already 7 years old. I'll be attending school from today onwards. A school where adults attend as well, the school where Papa, Blue Mama, and White Mama attended. Red Mama never attended this school, but I've heard that she teaches swordplay from time to time. If it's you, it's going to be fine. You'll be just fine if you properly follow what we have taught you, or so Blue Mama had told me, but I'm still a bit nervous. A place where adults are in majority. I'm worried whether I'll be able to make friends there, whether I'll be able to do my best. I have some hopes as well, but my anxiety is greater. But I think if I worked hard there, I will be praised by my Papa. Lucy is amazing. As expected of my daughter. Or so I think I'll be praised like that. And then, surely my hopes will be reached as well. That is why, I'll work hard in order to achieve that goal. Page 113 580. Story of the 7 Nights of Azura. Page 114 580. Chapter 7.
Isolde's marriage hunting. That's gonna be a bit weird. How long have we been streaming? Around 2 hours. Not 100% sure how long this one is. Check here. I'll go back to here for a quick sec. Might continue reading, just I'll keep this on. Three chapters. We'll continue then. I'm just checking something real quick because I looked to see like it's very strange because I saw some people coming up from YouTube search. I was like, really? It's very strange to me. Because I'm interested, because there's like 16 people here, and I kind of want to see like where each of you came from and stuff. I'm sure some of you just see this in your subscription feed. That's what I expect most of you to be from. But I don't know. These stats kind of like these stats are kind of interesting to me. I don't know. Now I'm thinking about Eris throwing her own family for disrespecting her family. Yeah. The Grey Rat family tree will be on the exam. That's too much, dude. No way. No one would ever pass that. No one. No one. No one would ever pass that. It's impossible. There's too many people in that family. 15? Nah. You have to get the tree in as well. me. All right. I was checking to see if like my video popped up if I searched Mushoku Tensei. It doesn't. But like what's funny is that I found this. Hold up. Let me change it so that it shows the correct thing. What I found is this. Bro, why the hell are all the first 12 episodes on YouTube? Like what is this? Bullshit. Literal bullshit. Why is this here? Why is this here? Why is this allowed to be here? Huh? I'm kind of interested. Fuck, ew. That audio.
You're kind here. Go back to the demon continent.
Bro! How? What the hell? Ew, it's the dub. The dub is fine, dude. Like, honestly, they spent like... I remember... My friend is like dyslexic, so like he can't really read that fast, so we had to watch the dub with him. But the problem is the dub came out one episode every 2 weeks, and at times it took like a month break. It goes to show how good the quality of the English dub is, and I honestly thought the English dub is really good. Honestly, I have no problems with the English dub for this show at all. You can find any anime episode by searching it up. Well, at least from 1 to 12. 2, 12. There's a lot of anime on YouTube with just audio tweaks and a few visual tweaks as well. It's not even flipped. It's not even flipped. It's not even flipped. It's not even flipped. What? Huh? What is this? What? Huh? You got the freaking Demon Slayer and freaking... What the hell, dude? You got part 2 in here as well? Like, bro, what the fuck? The fuck is wrong with this? I am confusion. I am confusion. All right, let's head back to. Let's head back to this. All right.
Marriage hunting, first part. Part 1. A long, long time ago. In the days before the school of the water god style. A certain country was frightened of the water dragon king. Their fishermen had encroached on his territory, and incurred his wrath. As a result, each day, their fishing boats were attacked, and water dragons frequently appeared in the port town. The Night Order attempted to resist, but due to the dragon's massive size and their ability to move freely through the water, the country was rapidly pushed towards ruin. They were on the precipice of destruction. In this situation, the gloomy king declared that he would offer both his crown and daughter's hand to any who could subdue the water dragon king. The many knights, brave men, and heroes who took up the challenge met their end torn to pieces at the hands of the water dragon king. What appeared then was a man carrying a single worn-out sword, clad in worn-out rags. Dramatizations of this ancient tale depicted him as a splendidly handsome man, but this couldn't have been farther from the truth. His true visage could elicit only one word. Vagrant. His name was Radel. Radel volunteered before the king, saying, "I will defeat him. Everything will be okay." With this, the king consented to his challenge. Page 115 580. Many thought he would give up halfway, as there was no way such a sloppy man could do anything. But Radel was strong. He froze over the surface of the ocean, putting a stop to the water dragon's movements. Within a blink of an eye, he approached the water dragon king. Having broken out of the ice, the writhing water dragon king rushed to attack Radel. With his worn-out sword, Radel returned the water dragon king's unblockable strike, slicing its head off with a single slash. With the water dragon king's head in hand, he returned to the country a hero. Or so, he should have. The king gave him a fortune great enough to play around with for the rest of his life. That was all. He could not consent to giving his daughter and crown to this dirty man. Radel was not mad, but he fell into a deep depression. He was in love with the princess. He loved the princess whom he had always watched from afar. Because his wish to marry the princess was not granted, he thought of leaving the country. Or should he have decided so, he could have easily become the king through sheer force. But there was someone who got angry in Radel's stead. It was the princess. While reprimanding the king, the princess hit him, sent him flying, and left the castle. She chased after Radel, who was leaving the country, and clung to his legs, saying, "I have abandoned my country. I am no longer a princess, nor do I have a last name. Even if you obtain me, you won't be able to have the country, you won't be able to become king. But if that is still agreeable with you, please take me as your wife." Page 116-580. Radel held the princess in his arms and left the country smiling. The two married soon after, then vanished. Decades later, somewhere in the world, the water god style was born. And in accordance with that story, a custom was born. The spouse of the water god shall abandon their household. Page 117-580. Part 2. Isolde Cruel. She is the person in charge of the Azura Kingdom's water god style school, and the single instructor of the Asuran Knight Order. She is currently a water emperor, but just recently acquired the third out of the 5 secret techniques belonging to the water god style. In a few months she will succeed the name of water god. Age unknown. Appearing in her 20s. Stunning blue-black hair and dignified features. Whoever saw her would admit she was beautiful. But rumor has it that she isn't really all that young. In the Azura Kingdom, the only person that knows her true age is Lady Ariel. But now, this woman is currently searching for a marriage partner. Her long days of training to become the water god are over. Although she'll still continue training, this is a turning point in her life, that is to say. She should seriously start considering marriage. But her search for a husband is a difficult one. Of course, that's not to say there's no one willing. She'll soon be the water god after all. There are many who have approached her, such as fellow water god style disciples. Captivated by her beautiful appearance, there are few men whose hearts have not been touched by her sincere training. That being said, they are swordsmen. They are those who have decided to make a living through the sword. Page 118-580. There are few men tolerant enough to take on a wife stronger than themselves. It was Isolde's condition that if they were a swordsman, then they would have to be as strong as her, or at least possess strength of the king class. For Asuran nobles, female swordsmen have always been popular. The passive women of the water god style have a much softer and more graceful demeanor when compared to those of the assertive and violent sword god style. Isolde would also be well versed in the etiquette of the imperial court. A young, pretty, well-spoken girl, the men would be all over her. And on top of that, she's an established swordsman. To have a woman like that serve as their wife and to be able to dish evil her in bed at night. Many Asuran nobles approached her with those thoughts in mind. Of course, those who approached her with perverted hobbies and vulgar laughs were refused. But every now and then someone who would make her think this person might be alright comes along. Good looking, good personality, and fairly good sword skills. Those kinds of good-looking men are quite good at hiding their perverted interests while flashing a smile and drawing closer. Very prince-like. Isolde could easily see through guys like that. The people around would always end up saying things like, "He's actually a scumbag, don't bother with him." Those prince types have good outer relations. If Isolde cared about such superficiality, she'd have already fallen. Thinking thoughts like, well, he'll do. Even so, those very princes immediately turned her down upon hearing her condition. "I will soon become the water god and will name myself, water god Ryudaria. If you are to marry me, you must abandon your household. The spouse of the water god must not have a last name." Page 119-580. The custom of the water god. Not following it wouldn't be disadvantageous, and following the custom most likely would not provide any benefit. It is simply a tradition followed by generations of water gods. Isolde's grandmother, previous water god Ryuda, also followed this tradition. Because of this, Isolde's father also didn't possess a last name. Cruel was the last name of her mother. And so, Isolde, who greatly respected her grandmother, wished to follow in kind. But unfortunately, the princes that attempted to fool Isolde were nobles. They were born as nobles and have lived as nobles. They had lived for appearances and superficiality. Even if they were charmed by Isolde, there was none whom they would willingly abandon their family to marry. Page 120-580. Part 3. Isolde was troubled. She'd been searching for a husband for several years now. It mostly seemed to be going well, but things always tripped up at the last step. "At this rate it looks like I won't be able to marry before the succession," is what she thought. She was confident. She had good looks, cooking skill, and was well versed in makeup. There wasn't a day she missed the upkeep of her hair and skin. She was well versed in conversation, as water god style training included such skills in its curriculum. Skills for provoking the opponent and taking the initiative. Putting them into practice, flattery is simple. But she was still having to exert herself. Despite all that, she couldn't get married. Even Eris and Nina had managed to find partners, but she still couldn't. Well, it was probably because they had childhood friends. There was no law that stated she had to marry. But she still thought she could overcome that with her own charm. She was self-conscious. But she thought that her ideal partner would eventually show himself due to her unceasing effort. How many has it been now? That was the 21st. Page 121-580.
21st.
21 people had now turned her down. Including the ones she, herself had turned down, the number was much higher. I see. Right now, Isolde was sitting in her living room facing her brother. Isolde's brother, Tuntries Cruel, was a high-level water god-style swordsman. He was the oldest son of the Cruel house, but compared to his little sister, he couldn't be considered especially talented. He put forth enough effort to make his blood run, but in the end he didn't have the talent to advance any higher. But he's an honest man. His grandmother, Ryuda, had told him maybe it's time to make you a saint class. But he had said I don't need a title unbefitting of my stature. And rejected the offer. Even when Ryuda was alive, he'd been in charge of the dojo's administration. And he'd even looked after Isolde. Do you think you're aiming too high? No, I don't think. You have a certain level of talent and standing. You have the right to choose a suitable partner. But if you're too picky and can't find anyone, there's no point. I understand that. Isolde had always looked up to her brother. The two of them had lost their parents at an early age. Luckily their grandmother was the water god and they didn't have to struggle to survive, but she was a busy woman and didn't have much time to look after the two of them. At that time, it was Tuntrese who took over as the parent. He had supported her after their parents died and raised her. The school of swordsmanship is a world of ability. The talented Isolde surpassed her brother in under 10 years. Page 122-580. But she never stopped looking up to him, and he never stopped supporting her. There's no need to think about the honor of the cruel house. Living as the water god, a harsh fate no doubt awaits you. Forget about status and lineage and pick someone you're comfortable with. Tuntrese was already married and had a child. Of course they had met with Isolde and talked with her about it. But Isolde hadn't thought she was very likable. She was the daughter of an Asuran noble. Her father had sent her to get married to create a relationship with the water god Ryuda. She obviously looked down on Tuntrese and had no understanding of swordplay. She had never once come to the dojo. Aside from things relating to the children, the two mostly lived apart. Isolde didn't want to marry someone like that. It's exactly because of that Isolde had been so careful in choosing. Although her carefulness extended only to stripping away their facades. But she had stuck by the requirement of at least intermediate level swordsmanship. She had no intention of fussing over lineage. But now that she had become the main instructor, she would have many chances to meet with Ariel and talk to her, and there were many coming to meet with her who wanted to take advantage of that. A fallen noble, a commoner, or an adventurer would have been fine. As long as they're able to make up for it in some other way. I have no intention of choosing. Then are you okay with someone I choose for you? No, I should be allowed to search for my own partner. Page 123-580. And she was also very stubborn. Of course there's also the fact that everyone Tuntrese recommended were nothing but muscleheads. Although you couldn't call her picky, she absolutely wouldn't concede on her conditions. It really didn't seem likely that she would be able to marry. Right. Tuntrese had no intention of blaming her. It wouldn't be the first time the water god was without a spouse. And he could continue the cruel line himself. But he still wanted to help his little sister find happiness. And if his sister wanted to find happiness in marriage, he wanted to support her. That said, if she didn't want his help, he had no intention of pursuing. Although he didn't have much talent, he was still a man of the water god school. Oh right, Isolde, didn't Her Majesty summon you today? Yes. Are you fine on time? I'm still good. Just in case, you shouldn't keep Her Majesty waiting. We'll stop the conversation here today. Have a safe trip. Yes brother. Point one, I'll be off now. Isolde said that, bowed, and returned to her own room. After that she changed and headed for the Imperial Palace. After seeing her off, Tuntrese breathed a sigh of relief. HAAA. At this rate it'll probably be impossible for her to get married before the succession ceremony. Page 124-580. After thinking that, Tuntrese returned to the dojo and resumed his instruction of the younger disciples. Page 125-580. Part 4. Isolde walked to the Azura Kingdom's Silver Palace. The crest of the shield-bearing battle girl carved onto the breastplate of the silver armor is one that is famed throughout the land. Her white and blue coat fluttered through the air as she marched forward. The patrolling soldiers stood at attention with admiration in their gazes as she walked towards the palace. There isn't anybody in the Asuran Imperial Palace who doesn't know the name of the Water Emperor Isolde. And there are many soldiers who yearn for her dignified figure. By the way, there aren't many who know that she's been having thoughts along the lines of, I don't want to get married too late. Or I hope a good guy would fall from the sky. Why if it isn't Isolde Dano, where are you headed? The person standing in front of her was a single man. He was short and lanky with thin hair, overall he seemed very timid. He looked about 40 years old. He was human, but if Rudia saw him, he'd probably think he looks like a senile old man too. No matter how you looked at him, he didn't seem like a knight or a swordsman, but he was wearing the same silver breastplate as Isolde. But his armor had a slightly different design. His crest was a girl praying with a rampart crown atop her head. Well if it isn't Lord Ifrit. My good graces to you sir. Be at ease. We are of the same rank, there is no need kneel. Page 126-580. Sylvester Ifrit. One of the 7 knights of Azura the King's Rampart. He with a name that didn't match his face, was the chief executive in charge of the defense of the Imperial Palace. Isolde was only a knight. Knights were of a fairly low class, whereas nobility was quite high. And Sylvester held the highest position among all knights and soldiers, and was also a middle-rank noble. Normally any servant who crossed his path would immediately fall to their knees. But we are both knights of Her Majesty. In response to his sharp words, Isolde stood back up. That is sufficient. We do not work for the country, but for Her Majesty. The only person you should kneel before is Her Majesty, herself. In response to Sylvester's rising aura, she swallowed her words and nodded. Sylvester was of small stature. He was prone to illness and could not be called strong. He was in no way skilled with swords or magic. And yet in spite of that, he had managed to graduate as the valedictorian of the Knight Academy. He raises people up and is well versed at command. He truly understood the meaning of the phrase, right person for the right job. And for that one talent, Ariel dragged him out from an obscure corner of the country, called him back to the palace, and appointed him as her knight. Page 127-580. By the way, Isolde Dano, where might you be heading? Her Majesty has called for me. If that is the case, then you haven't the time to be wasting it with someone like me. Did you have some business with me? It's nothing major. There's simply a man I would like to introduce you to. I hope you'll forgive the selfishness of my foolish son, but time permitting, if you are interested, I hope you'll at least have a couple of words with him. This was a conversation Isolde very much was interested in. She wanted to hear more about this foolish son of his. But she was currently being called by her lord. I understand. When I have the time, I'll come and we can finish the conversation. But she simply said that with a stiff face and headed off on her way to the inner palace. The amount of people decreased. The simply dressed soldiers began to become scarce, being replaced by lavish knights. These lower-ranked nobles, befitting of their titles as knights, had all pledged allegiance to Ariel. Those who had an extremely small chance of betrayal. And in the inner section of the inner palace, there were even fewer people. By now the soldiers and knights had disappeared and she was walking through an empty hallway. Occasionally, there was a frighteningly sharp-looking maid, the imperial maids, passing by. These imperial maids were personally chosen by Ariel. Their possibility of betrayal was even lower. Ariel was in the king's chamber. Page 128-580. Standing in front of the extravagant door was a single man. He was completely covered in golden armor and holding a giant battle axe. The Azura Kingdom's greatest gatekeeper. The possibility of him betraying Ariel was non-existent. Isolde Cruel. Reporting for summons. Yes, sir. Doga had received Isolde's introduction and slowly moved. They seemed like clunky movements. But Isolde couldn't see a single opening. If it came to it, he could swing that battle axe of his at terrifying speeds. And if it came to it, breaking past this man and passing through the door behind him would be nigh on impossible. Doga had extended his hand towards Isolde. Isolde saw that and looked confused. Doga had a simple face. It wasn't crude, but Isolde wasn't fond of it. Being searched by someone like that sparked a slight amount of resistance in her. Body search? Go ahead. But this was the queen's room. And obviously, even her knights could not be permitted to bring weapons into the room. Doga understood that weapons could not be brought into her room. Even against the Prime Minister of the Azura Kingdom, Doga would still carry out his meticulous search and not even the smallest of things would get past him. The body search was a matter of course. Page 129-580. While wondering if he was going to touch her breasts, Isolde silently decided to bear with it. Yes, sir. But Doga didn't touch her. What his extended hand had touched was her hair. Doga moved his hand up to her hair and grabbed something out of it. In Doga's fingers was a flower petal. Follow me. Isolde is pretty, so you can't have these kinds of things on you. Doga was smiling under his helmet. Isolde stood there stiff with a blank expression. Ah, my weapon. Isolde suddenly though that and unfastened her sword belt and presented it to Doga. Doga didn't even take that. Isolde is Ariel Samba's knight. For you to protect Ariel, a weapon is necessary. He didn't conduct a body search. He didn't take her weapon. He trusted her as Ariel's knight. The man who possessed the ability to join the 5 fingers of the Azura Empire. Thinking about it like that, her heart rate slightly increased. Page 130-580. No, not with that face. She took a deep breath to calm her buzzing head. Isolde Cruel. Entering. Come in. She waited for Ariel's response and entered. Page 131-580. Part 5. The 7 Knights of Azura. With Luke Nodos Grere, the King's Dagger as the head, they are 7 knights who have sworn absolute allegiance to Ariel herself. Even among knights they possessed a special position and independent movement was permitted to some extent. Isolde was also a member. The King's Great Shield. To defend the king at all times, a fitting name for a water god-style swordsman. Isolde, Sylvester, Doga. These 3 are known as the 3 Knights of the Left. Among the 7 Knights of Azura their main job was the protection of Ariel. But Isolde felt something was off. The 7 Knights of Azura were knights who had pledged absolute allegiance to Ariel. At least that's what was said. Because Isolde hadn't gathered with them and met them yet, she wasn't deeply informed about them. They may have pledged loyalty to Ariel, but most of them are unrelated to the Azura Kingdom, having been gathered from outside. They most likely each have their own reasons to unconditionally serve Ariel. But Isolde was different. Isolde had a reason to betray the previous water god. The moment when her grandmother had died. Page 132-580. The death of the previous water god Riada. During Ariel's battle for the crown she had been killed by Ariel's supporter, the dragon god, Orsted. Of course, it had happened during a battle. Isolde was a warrior who had no intention of harboring unnecessary emotions after a battle had come to a close. This was because before she was Isolde's grandmother, she was the water god. If she were to defy Ariel, more so than the Azura Empire, the water god school would see to her banishment. And thus, she wouldn't think of defying Ariel. Isolde's resolve was clear on that. But no matter how sure of it she was herself, if all she had was words, nobody could be certain it was the truth. Nobody could see the depths of another's heart. It was entirely possible that after her grandmother had been killed, she had been secretly harboring hatred and secretly aiming for Ariel's life. Or maybe instead of Ariel, she could be aiming for the perpetrator, Orsted. In truth, when Ariel was taking the crown, she had a large number of knights and nobles killed. And the amount of people who still hold grudges was not small. They continue their everyday lives having pledged loyalty to Ariel, awaiting their opportunity. It wouldn't be strange for Isolde to be thinking the same way. Isolde had sworn the knight's oath and pledged loyalty to Ariel. But it wasn't because of Ariel's personality, nor was it due to patriotism. It was to protect her honor and place as water god. She was currently protecting their relationship of mutual trust, but if that was jeopardized, it's possible that she couldn't guarantee absolute loyalty. Page 133-580. It's not as if she thought of betrayal. It's simply that the possibility exists. That's something that Isolde herself understood. And yet in spite of that, she was chosen as one of the 7. She was uneasy. There had to be some kind of catch. Isolde, do you have any intention of considering a marriage candidate of my referral? Which is why, even in the face of that suggestion, she was weary. Why would your majesty mention such a proposal? To me, having you, the water god, settle down with a family would be a plus to your work. The candidates are all of my blood, and there are many who possess rather particular sexual dispositions among them. But there has to be one who matches your tastes. Of your blood. Do you mean to say that they're royalty? Yes, that is the case. A marriage interview with royalty. Hearing that did not cause excitement in Isolde. It was of little matter. But when I become the water god they will have to abandon their household, for royalty, isn't that somewhat inconvenient? Even without the name, their blood still remains. They do not have to actively cut off their family, do they? That is the case. It's fine. They all acknowledge this condition. They have been promised that if they marry you, the support of the royal family will not be withdrawn. All you need to do is meet with them and pick the most good-natured out of the bunch. Page 134-580. This was definitely a ploy to win her over, is what Isolde thought. Because the conditions were too favorable. Ariel's relatives, royalty. They may only be a branch, but these are people who could be called genuine princes. They aren't the sons of nobles, they are people, no matter how small, have the possibility to become king. A true prince. And all those of the Asuran royal family are good-looking and refined. How does it sound? It's not a bad deal, right? Please allow me. Isolde gave an immediate reply. She didn't have a reason to refuse. If she was a sly Asuran noble, she may have taken the time to consider the hidden meaning behind Ariel's words. But unfortunately she was just a swordsman. Although she may have been a girl searching for a husband. She didn't care about anything complex. Then sometime in the near future we'll begin the marriage interviews. Please convey to Luke or Sylvester on which days you are free. You can leave the rest to me. Yes ma'am, I thank you for your kindness. Understood. Then, you may leave. Isolde withdrew from Ariel's private room in a dreamy state of mind. A marriage interview with royalty. Isolde was somewhat light on her feet and her heart was beating with excitement. She was going to go tell Sylvester to book her closest day off. When she thought that, she suddenly realized that she was quite thirsty. It must have been nervousness from being called out for an unknown reason. Page 135-580. I'm quite thirsty. Yes sir. While mumbling to herself, suddenly being called out to from behind caused Isolde to fall into stance and turn around. And Doga was standing there. The huge man standing there with the small cup. Here, it's cold. Thank you very much. Isolde took it and after wondering for a moment whether there was poison in it, drank it down. Like Doga said, it was cold as if it had been ice just moments ago and her thirst was quenched. Feeling the water permeate the depths of her body, she realized that she was far more nervous and tired than she had thought. Haa. Isolde, good work. Doga drank some water, took a breath and gave a smile. Even through the helmet, she could tell that that smile had no ulterior motives and was simply an honest gesture. She was a perceptive person. She realized that she wouldn't hesitate to lead her back to this man. Although she wasn't fond of his face. Good work to you too, Doga. Best wishes with your guard duty. Yes sir. Page 136-580. Well, that's something in and of itself. Reminding herself of the upcoming marriage interviews, that she'd be spending the next few days absorbed in, she cut off the conversation and walked off smiling. Page 137-580. Author Q&A. Q. Not being able to beat Doga even after becoming the water god, does this mean that her ability is below the world power class? A. It's not that she can't win. It's...
I'm thirsty too, yeah. I need some water, you know. Okay. This story's a bit mid, I'm not gonna lie. Kind of hesitant on reading the rest of this. Like now. It gets better. It's so mid. Better get better.
Chapter 8. The Gatekeeper Doga, First Part. Part 1. In the Azura Kingdom there's a group known as the 7 Knights of Azura. They are those who have pledged absolute loyalty to Ariel and Azura. Leading them. The King's Dagger Luke Nodos Grere. In charge of offense are the 3 Knights of the Left Wing, the King's Great Sword Sandor von Granger. The King's Halberd Oswald Urus Grere. The King's Hound Gislaine Dodoradaya. In charge of defense are the 3 Knights of the Right Wing, the King's Gatekeeper Doga. The King's Rampart Sylvester Ifrit. The King's Great Shield Isolde Cruel. 7 people. There are those whose birth and descent are clear. But others were those who Ariel and Luke had personally scouted. From commoners and lower-ranked nobles to high-ranking officials, there was even a half-immortal among them. But what they shared was their undying loyalty towards Ariel. Page 139-580. While Isolde is pondering the true meaning behind the particular in Ariel's statement. Rather particular sexual dispositions, let's take a look at one of those nights. Page 140-580. Part 2. He was born in a small village of the Azura Kingdom's Tanati province. He was a little slow and treated like a henchman by the other kids. But his body was strong and he never got sick. His father was a soldier who protected the village and spent most of his days away. There were very few soldiers, so he didn't get many days off and ended up spending most nights away from home. When the boy was around 5 years old, his little sister was born. She was a sweet girl just like her mother. But the mother had a difficult time recovering from childbirth and passed away. The boy cried. He was hit by his friends and he was stung by a bee, but the stupefied boy continued to cry. The crying boy's father said this to him. Right now you can cry, but when you stop, you have to protect this girl. Holding his little sister, the boy looked up at his father and nodded many times over. And that day, the boy stopped crying. The next day the boy began faithfully practicing to realize his father's command. The command to protect his sister. To protect his sister he began to guard the entrance to his house. The whole day, holding a hatchet he found in the corner of the house, he stood at the entrance. Only when his sister cried did he leave his post, in order to comfort her. Page 141-580. Seeing his figure, his friend laughed. The hell you doing? He said. You can just watch from inside, he said. The adults of the village had said this to him. If you want you can leave your sister to us. There are already plenty of children at our house so one more won't matter. But the boy firmly refused to hear it. He had them teach him how to take care of her, but he would not entrust his sister to anyone else. One day, an incident occurred at the village. In the middle of the night, something had snuck into the barn and laid waste to the livestock. From the footprint size it was judged to be a wolf. Soldiers were running around telling the villagers to stay inside and lock their doors. The next day, a single house had been attacked. The wolf had gotten in through who knows where, instantly bit off a child's head, and escaped through a window. After waking up, without knowing what happened, the family simply chased after the blood trail. And on the outskirts of town, finding children's clothing in a pool of blood, they went crazy.
Said she
These two
just
incidents
doesn't
made the
like
soldiers
his
realize that they were
face,
mistaken in
man.
their judgment. It wasn't a wolf that was hiding in the village, but a magic beast. It was only the size of a regular wolf, but it was a cunning magic beast. The perpetrator was a magic beast. Its head and hind legs were that of a wolf's. Page 142-580. But from the shoulder down it was a monkey. It could walk on 2 legs and climb trees. It was only about the size of a large dog. But its head was oddly large in comparison to its body. And that head gave it intelligence. It was a mutated magic beast. The magic beast, who wondered what humans tasted like, was lurking in the wheat fields as if ridiculing the frightened villagers, searching for its next target. But the adults didn't return to the field that day. The wolf chased after them but looked in the wrong place. What was left in the house were 2 children. The magic beast, licking its lips, used its monkey arms to climb the chimney, descending into the fireplace. The next day, the boy's father, who had finished his patrol, saw a trail of blood coming from his own house. This can't be, he thought with an ashen face as he ran inside his house. He soon found the cruel corpse of the figure left behind. It was the corpse of the magic beast. The corpse of the beast with its head smashed open. And between the corpse and his daughter was his son, standing imposingly, clutching his hatchet. He could see that the beast was dead. The boy was covered in blood and his arm was broken. But that was all. The magic beast was small, but it did resemble a wolf. It was several times bigger than the boy. Page 143-580. And in spite of that, the boy had beaten it to death with his blunt hatchet. He had protected his sister. That was the boys who would later become known as the North Emperor Doga. First battle. Page 144-580. Part 3. From there on the life of the gatekeeper Doga continued. When he was 10, he protected the entrance to his village. Right before the teleport incident, a wild stampede of magic beasts occurred. They swelled forth from a forest in the kingdom and some number of villages suffered. Some were even engulfed and completely destroyed. Doga's village was among those attacked. But Doga, with his dauntless courage and hatchet, diverted the swarm. It said that he defeated nearly 100 beasts during the battle, and although he had defeated so many, his father had passed away during. Doga simply stood bewildered next to his father's body. The knights who saw Doga's courage recommended him to the imperial garrison. Seeing Doga hesitate for the sake of protecting his sister, they said this. Listen boy, we've been separated from our families and move all over the kingdom protecting villages. In other words, we protect the very country itself. As long as the country is at peace, our families can live in safety. Meaning that protecting the country is protecting your family. At that time, the simple-minded Doga didn't understand those words. In the end, what caused Doga to move was money. After his father had died, he needed money. He had heard that he would be able to get the money for the 2 of them to live in the imperial capital and decided to move there. Doga entered the imperial army. He was in charge of protecting a small gate cutting off the slums from lower-class residences. Page 145-580. In case those of the slums tried to riot, it would create a bottleneck preventing them from swarming. Besides the fact that passage was prohibited at night, it wasn't a particularly important gate. He and his sister had been allocated a single room. It was small, but it was home. He would commute from there to his post each day and man it from dawn till dusk and sometimes even all night. Doga was a simple man, but he had a strange charm to him. At first the other soldiers didn't look kindly towards a 10-year-old working with them and there were many who harassed him. But due to his honest personality and his resolute attitude towards his sister, his co-workers began to relax somewhat and in about a year's time began to recognize Doga as a comrade. 2 years later. One night, a certain girl ran towards the gate he was guarding. The girl clung to Doga and asked him to save her. While Doga was hesitating, a group of men with harsh glares appeared and yelled, "Hand us the woman." Doga was bewildered and had no idea what to do. If Doga's watch partner Hans hadn't been dozing off, He probably could have come to a decision. The woman, seeing Doga confused, quickly ran towards the gate. Doga immediately grabbed her by the back of the neck and pulled her back, because passage is prohibited during the night. But in that instant, sensing that the woman was trying to run away, they gave chase. Doga swung his battle axe. He had gotten the axe as a farewell gift from the village blacksmith. Page 146-580. All of them died. Seeing Doga covered in blood, the woman wet herself and sunk to the ground. Hans woke from the noise and was taken aback by the scene before him. This is bad, he thought. Doga, who had killed them all, would be punished. And he, who had been dozing off, would also be punished. While thinking that, with his face ghastly white, he went to confirm the bodies. After seeing their faces, he realized that they were members of the violent thieves guild that had mixed in with the lower class citizens. The knights stationed at the slums were lacking manpower and couldn't do very much to them. But Doga had annihilated them all. Doga was promoted from a soldier who protected the entrance to the slums, to guarding the gate that connects the lower and middle class districts. And for some reason Hans came with him. Doga continued to protect that gate for some time after that. Through rain and wind he continued to protect it. Even as he grew up he continued to protect it. Hans had saved the simple Doga. Eventually, Hans became the person who understood Doga the best. And in that time, his little sister grew more and more beautiful and married Hans. Or maybe, Hans had been aiming for Doga's sister. But to Doga, it didn't matter either way. Because, although Hans was always sleepy, he wasn't a bad guy. For his sister's sake, Doga bore witness to their vows to Saint Millis. Page 147-580. And Doga was alone. Now that his sister was married, he thought about how he had completed his father's order to the very end. There wasn't any need to guard the gate anymore. But Doga continued to guard it. Through rain and wind he continued to protect it. One day, massive news spread like a wave all throughout the capital. It was declared that Ariel and Mayajura would be crowned queen. For several days, festivals continued throughout the city. Doga and his comrades were excited and Hans was jumping for joy. But a soldier's work increased during a festival. Their guard post was moved from the middle class district to somewhere else. The kingdom was recruiting temporary civilian soldiers, so real soldiers like Doga were given much more important duties. And in turn, their wages increased. Doga and Hans thought they could use the extra money to buy his sister something nice and worked hard. On a certain day before the coronation, due to some twist of fate, Doga was stationed at the back door of the palace. It was a fairly disused door where occasionally someone with a permit would come through. Hans wasn't with him. Doga was with several other soldiers. A single man wearing a worn-out armor and holding a long pole came along. He said, "Could you let me through here? I'd like an audience with Her Majesty Ariel." Of course the guards refused him. Page 148-580. You may not pass without permission. Show us your permit. I don't have a permit, but I'd like an audience with Her Majesty Ariel. You may not pass without a permit. Leave. Then it can't be helped. I thought I might have darkened Her Majesty's authority on this auspicious day. I'm glad I came through this back door. The man said that and began to force his way through. His pole moved like magic and the other guards were defeated in an instant. Only Doga remained. No matter how many times the pole was thrust at his vitals, Doga continued to stand and protect the gate. But at the same time, Doga's axe didn't hit the man even once. Having his axe miss was a first for Doga, but he continued to single-mindedly swing. The man was extremely happy to fight Doga. Wonderful. For a man like this to be buried here. Right, for your sake I'll give up on this gate. I'm really sorry about this. As an apology, would you be willing to become my disciple? You'll definitely become strong, you have talent, ... Doga didn't understand what the man was saying. Hearing that the man was going to give up on the gate caused Doga to hesitate for an instant. It truly was but an instant. And when Doga awoke, the man was still there. Doga picked up his axe and stood to protect the gate. But he was surrounded by a large number of soldiers. Well, good morning. I protected the gate in your stead. Page 149-580. That was how Doga met Sandor, North God Kalman II, Alexei Ryback. Page 150-580. Part 4. The day he became Sandor's disciple, Doga returned to his house, collapsed on his bed, and slept like a log. Thanks to the healing magician that came with the reinforcements, there wasn't a single wound left on him. But his battle with North God Kalman had completely emptied his nearly bottomless stamina. It was the first time in his life that he had collapsed from exhaustion. After sleeping for 2 straight days, he awoke. Next to his bed was his crying sister and a relieved Hans. And Sandor with a happy look on his face. Morning. Now my disciple, let us be off. Sandor used his tremendous strength to lift Doga to his feet and after Doga had put his armor on, he began to drag him out to who knows where. Doga, without knowing what from, asked Hans to save him. Sorry Doga, but it doesn't seem like a bad thing. I don't have any idea what's going on either but I think it's a pretty prestigious offer. So well, why don't you just give it a try? Work hard, I'll be heading out now. Okay. Brother, good luck. Although Hans had seemed to understand the basic gist of it, Doga was still confused. But he didn't have the strength to go against Sandor, and they headed to the gate he guarded yesterday. After they reached the gate, Sandor took out a rather gaudy permit and they passed through. And before long they were in the inner palace. Page 151-580. While Doga was constantly surprised by the dazzling rooms around him, Sandor had noticed something. What they had seen was the beautiful golden-haired woman in front of them. Is that him? Yes, your majesty. I'd like to talk to him. Coming out from behind Sandor, Doga stood in front of the woman. The woman was extremely beautiful and above all sublime. I am Ariel and Mayajura. What would your name be? Doga didn't know that name. Doga was on guard duty and hadn't heard her name at the coronation ceremony. And of course, he hadn't seen her before either. But once he realized, Doga fell to his knees. Somehow he felt that he had to. I am. Doga. Why did you become a soldier? My dad told me to protect my sister. Doga wasn't all that good at talking. In all his life, although he listened to plenty of other people, he had never said very much. But the words that came from his mouth had convinced Ariel. To protect your sister, a splendid goal. But, Hans is already protecting my sister, so Hans and my sister are together and The soldier next to Ariel had added his sister is married to a soldier named Hans. Doga didn't know, but it was Luke. Page 152-580. So she doesn't really need me to protect her anymore. Doga looked downhearted as he said that, but Ariel smiled. That is incorrect, Doga. You cannot stop looking after her. What do you mean? Hans has become your brother, so you must now protect both your brother and your sister. Your work has doubled. Those words caused Doga a shock. He hadn't thought about it like that before. But she was correct. Hans addressed Doga as a brother. Hans was his brother. If he was to protect his sister, he would obviously protect his brother. Alright. I have to keep protecting them. Yes, but with your current method, it's possible that you may not be able to protect them both. Why? Why? You are strong, but your arms are short. If those two are to fall into danger, it's possible that you may be too far to help. Doga looked at his hands. He remembered his father's death. He had been close by, but had been killed by a beast outside of Doga's vision. Then, what should I do? Protect me. What? Page 153-580. I work for the sake of the country to improve. To protect me, is to protect this country. And to protect the country is to protect those two. Doga didn't understand. Why would protecting the person in front of him, protect those two? He had no clue. But the way Ariel said it had left him with no doubt. And at the same time, he remembered something similar someone once said to him. The knight who had recommended him to the imperial capital. Listen boy, we've been separated from our families and move all over the kingdom protecting villages. In other words, we protect the very country itself. As long as the country is at peace, our families can live in safety. Meaning that protecting the country is protecting your family. Back then, he hadn't understood. Because he didn't get it, he moved for money. But now, he somewhat understood. Because Doga is protecting something in a completely different place, Hans and his sister can live in peace. Doga. Would you swear loyalty to me and protect not only I, but the kingdom as well? Yes, your majesty. Then Doga, I now appoint you a knight. That day, Doga became one of the 7 knights of Azura. Page 154-580. Part 5. Since then, Doga had continued to protect the final door. The final door, the entrance to the king's chambers. At times he would head out on Ariel's orders. Once a day, not too far from Ariel's door, he would receive instruction from Sandor. And once a month on his day off, he would go visit his sister and Hans to eat with them. When Doga wasn't around, someone else was protecting the king's door in his stead. Much of the time it was the king's great shield, Isolde Cruel. But it wasn't like that to start with. He was appointed a knight and presented with a shiny set of golden armor. And after taking his post he did not move. After he had decided to protect it, he couldn't leave it to someone with half-hearted resolve. For an entire month, he left the door to no one other than Sandor. If he wasn't ordered to rest by Ariel, he would have continued standing there without even eating for days.
Can we skip this to the end? No skipping, no
Gender
skipping.
had no relevance, and
hey,
would even
listen.
take the smallest fork. And in that,
Mushoku Tensei may not be a masterpiece. Like, not a masterpiece. It may not be the best at times. But we have to power through to the very end. I must take all the bad things with the good things. Doga and Isolde, this story is kind of mid. Not just mid, it's pretty bad in Mushoku Tensei standards. So, yeah. We're gonna keep going. Gotta power through.
Time, someone had joined the 7 knights. The king's great shield, Isolde Cruel. She was the head instructor and in the time before Ghislaine joined, was the only female member and eventually took the job of Ariel's personal guard.
Yeah, seriously,
Sandor,
like when we have entire volumes that are just mid, we can go through
Sandor,
chapters like
no
this.
Replacement. Page 155-580. After an entire month of standing without break, Doga collapsed. Sandor decided that Isolde and Doga were to have a match. At that point, Sandor named Doga a North King. Although Sandor had only recently started teaching him, Doga was quite skilled. But it goes without saying, it was Isolde's overwhelming victory. Doga's battle axe was warded off like a gentle breeze. Time after time, he was countered and eventually defeated. It was to the extent that if they had been using real swords, Isolde could have killed him in an instant if she wished. Doga continued to attack Isolde with his inexhaustible stamina but couldn't lay a single finger on her and was defeated. The slender woman who was like a flower, continued to blow off the axe that was bigger than herself and continued to attack. As Doga took that hit over and over, he had to admit, she was someone fit to protect the door in his stead.
It's like, let's choose a random picture from this book.
This woman was a graceful and lovely flower.
I want
Something he could not touch.
meow.
Doga had fallen in love with Isolde. Page 156-580. Part 6. You seem pretty down lately. Doga was having dinner with his sister's family when he was told that. In front of the simple-looking Doga were a number of dishes on the table. And on the other side of the table was his sister and her husband Hans. And sitting across from Hans was their daughter. Doga was sitting there blankly filling his mug of wine to the brim. Are you not feeling well? Why? Having perceived unrest in Doga's heart, Hans pointed to the food. Eat it all up all right. Looking at it, it was obvious to see that he hadn't eaten much. It was his beloved sister's cooking. Normally, Doga would be wolfing down his food in silence, swallowing enough to make his cheeks bulge with a happy look on his face. Along with his favorite wine. He loved wine that was normally reserved for special occasions, so much so that he would even drink it here. And for that reason, Hans made sure to always have a barrel ready at their house. But for some reason, he hadn't even eaten half his food and the way he was drinking his wine seemed somehow worn out. To those who knew Doga, something was definitely off. If you aren't feeling well, why don't you go see the castle's healers? You're already a knight, if you ask, surely they'd do that much for you? Well, at least you don't look too bad. Page 157 580. Doga puzzlingly tilted his head. He himself didn't realize something was off. If you're tired, why not get a little more rest? I know that working as a guard for Her Majesty is a prestigious job and all. But if you were working too hard and collapsed, it wouldn't be a joke. Well, I can't really imagine you collapsing though. Yes sir. Doga nodded and started eating. But he was definitely odd. It was, as always, delicious. But the second the food went down his throat, he felt something off. Normally, he would chew and swallow so fast, you'd want to tell him to slow down. But not this time. Each time he reached to put something in his mouth, a feeling of rejection welled up from his stomach. As if he was full, but much more unpleasant. The wine was also odd. It wasn't all that nice. He'd normally look refreshed after taking a swig, but now he looked somewhat sick. If something happened, tell us. Hans began to press the silent Doga for answers. Mr. Brother-in-law, no, Doga. Ever since we were stationed together in the slums, I've always been grateful to you. If you can't even let me help you, how can I keep living with myself? How could I show my face to St. Millis? Yes sir. But, I don't get it either. Page 158 580. Lately, has there been something at the castle? Anything? Tell us. Doga raised his head and saw Hans' serious look. Doga, like he was told, started to look back in his memory and slowly began talking. While guarding the final gate, a cat had wandered by. He had just finished his lunch and it made him happy. While walking through the town in his armor, a young soldier had called out to him. You're my idol. And it made him happy. While he was guarding the final gate, Isolde had come by and when he took a leaf out of her hair, she thanked him and it made him happy. When Sandor was teaching him a new technique and complimented him, it made him happy. When he was walking back to the soldiers' lodgings, and a carriage driver nearly ran him over yelling beat it dumbass. But Luke came out from it and even walked him back and that made him happy. When he arrived at the training ground on Sandor's orders and Ghislaine and Isolde were there, it made him happy. When he heard the rumor that Isolde might be getting married from a royal guard, it didn't make him all that happy. When he was guarding a party, Isolde appeared in a dress and looked really pretty. Seeing her in a dress made him happy. When he saw her dance with some guy he didn't know, it didn't make him very happy. When he saw some noble sons talking smack about Isolde behind her back, it didn't make him very happy. When he saw Isolde walking around with some cool guy it made him sad. When Isolde. That's enough, I get it. I understand everything. Hans interrupted Doga's story. He had basically understood. So basically, you've fallen for this Isolde. Page 159 580. Doga's face began to redden. He didn't know why he ended up telling them, but Hans was exactly right. And then, when you heard Isolde was getting married and saw that she was in favor of it, it was a shock to you. Yes sir. Having it said to him so bluntly, Doga head fell even further. It seemed that Hans was right again. I get it. Seeing Doga's reaction, Hans understood. It really seemed like his brother-in-law had fallen in love. And at the same time, Hans began to remember his first love. The only daughter of the greengrocer who lived next door in his hometown. There was an age gap of 5 years, but that didn't change the fact that they were childhood friends. She had looked after him since they were little. She was a kind, reliable, and pretty older sister. He had liked her since age 5. He dreamt of marrying her in the future. When he grew up, he would apply to be a soldier and after his income stabilized, he would propose. Or that was the plan. When Hans was 12 she married the butcher's son and the two of them succeeded his family business. Hans knew him and by Hans's judgment, he was already an old man. Although they were only separated by 5 years, so he really wasn't that old. At first he didn't believe it. He was well built, but by no means handsome. He thought she was against it and would eventually return to him. Page 160 580. But after a year she was curling close to him with a happy smile on her face, and after seeing the large bulge on her stomach, he finally understood. That night, his pillow was wet with tears. Perhaps, if he had confessed his feeling for her earlier, he wouldn't have had to have felt like that. But that's not to say he was unhappy right now. If he had married her, he wouldn't have married Doga's sister. Doga's sister was both like and unlike him. She was a sweet and confident woman with a small figure. And the product of their love was now eating Doga's food in his stead. She was a healthy child. Hans was confident that he was the happiest man in the world. But he had that happiness because he had suffered heartbreak. Because of that experience, the moment he realized he was in love with Doga's sister, he took action. It may have looked frivolous at first. But from beginning to end, Hans had been completely sincere with Doga's sister. And he was that much more serious in his gatekeeping job. Since the day he confessed, he didn't touch another woman. And because of that, he had triumphed over his rivals and managed to obtain what he had today. For that reason, Hans said, "Go propose to Isolde right now." Hearing that, Doga looked up, confused. Page 161 580. No, you don't need to propose, being friends is fine. If you can tell her you like her, that's enough. If you sit here and do nothing, you're going to regret it. But don't think about trying to keep the status quo. You're a member of the Azura Kingdom's famous Golden Knights. You're what we garrison members aspire to be. Raise your head with pride. Doga thought for a while. Doga had no idea how his lineage matched up to Isolde. But in appearances, Doga knew. The impeccable beauty, Isolde, didn't match him. He had thought a lot about that. It's fine if it doesn't go anywhere, just tell her and get rejected. At this rate, you won't even be able to give her marriage your blessing. But with Hans's words, he reached a conclusion. Yes sir. He would confess to Isolde. Page 162 580. Chapter 9. Isolde and Doga, final part. Part 1. How many has it been now? Right now, Isolde was in her house
Nice
connected to
tower. It's gonna get even bigger. It'll reach to the top of this camera.
Tuntries tried to look her in the eyes, but
Yeah,
she
there's
averted her gaze.
something to keep my
There's a rumor
mind
going around
like
that you've given up. Yeah.
somewhat
Why?
not bored.
Isolde pressed her lips together. Well, everybody's great. They're all nice, calm people. It's just. Because they're all so perfect, their flaws all stand out. Isolde began to remember all the people she had met with. The royal family members introduced by Ariel. They were all lively young men, and did well to entertain Isolde during the meeting. But they were all quite honest. Page 163 580. Just as Ariel said, they began to talk about their own individual fetishes. The 5 she had met with were all quite open about it. Handsome, kind,
Horny.
after they were married, he would try his best to be of use to Isolde, Atoll Orpheus Azura.
Horny.
Handsome, strong, he has a deep understanding of the water god style, Bajal Venti Azura. Handsome, elegant, he's be an extreme help to the finances of the water god style, Carlos Iodos Azura. Handsome, funny, he can make you laugh in any conversation, Daniel Lips Azura. Handsome, cute, he just makes you want to protect him, Elliot Skiron Azura. All of them spoke in great detail. About what they'd do to her on the bed, or places other than the bed, what they'd want her to wear, and finally, what Isolde wanted. Isolde, who was by no means experienced, couldn't keep up. When she realized, she declined. They said up front what they thought. She remembered the repulsive lust those handsome men possessed. In truth, Isolde had quite a bit of mistrust towards men. Not all men are like that. They may not all be, but the world is large and there would have to be some that are. So Isolde began to think that it would be fine if she just didn't get married. What was wrong with them? I cannot say. It's something that I refuse to let from my mouth. I get it. They are Asuran royalty after all. The perverted tastes of Asuran royalty are quite famous. The upper class wouldn't be satisfied with the normality of the common person's desires. Page 164 580. But this really is a problem. You turned them all down. I haven't rejected all of them yet. There are still some left. True, but at this rate, nothing's going to get decided. Tuntries said that and reminisced. Isolde, whenever she had to choose anything for herself, would always end up being too picky, denying everything, and saying she hated it. And then someone comes along and takes all the good things, leaving her with whatever's left. That's also the reason she missed the usual age for marriage. Alright then, let's do this. Taking her personality into account, he came to a decision. Marry the next man you meet with. But, there's no way he'll be able to match all your conditions. Because you're in a position to choose, you focus on all the bad points. But after you're married, those flaws could seem like trivial matters. There might be some massive benefit that you missed at first. Tuntries didn't like this kind of overbearing argument. He believed that ample time to choose is necessary. And to know that person from the core. But it's because of Ariel's introduction that he believed, even if he had to be somewhat overbearing, he had to make it work somehow. He couldn't allow Ariel's introduction to end in failure. I understand. After a short silence, Isolde prepared herself. Page 165 580. It's true that she was too picky. She'd always been like that. That kind of personality has a good affinity with the water god style, she would soon be the water god after all, but it had a bad compatibility with marriage. If things continued this way, she might spend her whole life single. Water god is indeed a title to be proud of. To receive praise and admiration from all. Responding to everyone with a smile, conversing, and returning home in a good mood. And then come home to an empty house, eat alone and go to bed with no one by your side. Empty. She didn't become the water god to receive praise. But besides the swordsman within her, another Isolde exists. And that existence is already alone. And because of that, she felt empty. She didn't know whether or not building a family would fill the hole in her heart. But it would be better to have someone to come home from being admired to boast to. It's possible that whoever that might be, after listening to Isolde's day, they might demand some perverse act, but no, she was resolved. So, when and where is the next meeting? Today. Apparently there'll be a carriage to come pick you up. Royalty coming to meet me. Yes. There were 3 people left. Isolde didn't know, but after hearing that 5 had already been rejected, they had decided to go all out. Page 166 580. As a result of the order being chosen via lottery, each one came at her more serious than the last. It was then that Isolde realized. The dojo is quite noisy. The dojo was adjoined to the cruel house. That said, it was the headquarters of the water god style, so it took up a sizable portion of land. Normally you wouldn't be able to hear anything, but Isolde was a water emperor. When the noise was mixed with anger and bloodthirst, she'd have to notice. Is he already here? It seems a bit soon for that. No, I might just be mistaken, but in any case, I'm going.
You
Even if it is
believe
a
in
mistake,
Doga,
it
I
isn't good
believe
to
in
keep
him
royalty
too.
waiting.
The plot says
right.
that he'll do
Let's
it.
hurry. Isolde and Tuntries nodded to each other and
There
walked
you
towards
go.
the door. Page 167 580. Part
Will
2.
this guy
The
stay
dojo
up
was somewhat
there?
noisy. The disciples in their training uniforms were surrounding someone, berating them with insults. Ah, master, there's someone here to challenge you. He just showed up demanding that our master come out. Isolde and Tuntries turned blue the second they heard that. If the students were acting this way towards royalty, it would be possible for them to have the dojo shut down. He probably didn't give his name. The man who had come here to pick Isolde up. Cease this. At Isolde's cry the place immediately quieted. Open the path. He is my guest. But this man. All students are to kneel in the dojo. After Isolde had shouted that, the disciples scattered like baby spiders, headed towards the dojo and kneeled in a line. Ever since the previous generation they'd been quite fast at this. Well, that aside. She would have to quickly apologize. Thinking that, Isolde looked behind where the disciples just were. Page 168 580. Waiting there was a man standing at 2 meters tall. A shoulder width of at least a meter. With a massive stone-like frame. Isolde recognized it. Doga. Yes sir. When she called out and he turned around, it was definitely him. The completely honest member of the 7 Knights of Azura, the king's gatekeeper. Doga. He had previously been standing there looking frightened, but when he saw Isolde he looked relieved. You managed to narrowly escape death. This man is the North Emperor Doga. If he was serious, you people would have. Isolde had said that much and then noticed how Doga was dressed. Knight's formal wear. Isolde hadn't seen him in formal wear before. He was always wrapped up in his usual gold or grey armor. And as if it were his uniform, Ariel didn't say anything. In addition to his tidily wrapped appearance, he held a bouquet of flowers in his hand. In Doga's hand it may have looked small, but it was quite a large bouquet. What are you doing here? On Her Majesty's orders. Or is an urgent summons? Isolde was puzzled. Doga slowly walked towards her and pressed the bouquet towards her hands. Isolde didn't think it was possible. Page 169 580. Bouquet and formal wear. Isolde felt that it wasn't possible. But what he said next made the impossible possible.
Him. Reject
Isolde
his
grew.
ass,
I love you.
dude. Reject
He
it.
please marry me.
Reject.
How was it possible that Doga was a
Reject.
member
You
of
are
the Azura royal
rejected.
family?
Goodbye.
She suddenly understood.
Goodbye,
was the only
Doga.
man
Your
allowed to guard
face
Ariel's
is
private room.
ugly. Goodbye.
Luke was a special case and even Sandor,
Goodbye.
although he was allowed a weapon, was assigned to guard some far-off room. Even late at night, he still stands outside Ariel's room. But considering that, she had never heard that he was a eunuch. Doga was known to be a harmless man, he was still a man. With a large build and strength of a North Emperor. Considering that, it would be simple for him to take a visit to Ariel's bedroom. Isolde had always wondered how this man had gotten his position.
Seems like.
But what if he was related to Ariel? Someone she had known since she was young? His birthplace was supposedly a small village somewhere in the Empire, but there's all kinds of royalty. Ariel had once fled to a distant country, Doga may have also hid himself since childhood. Isolde. At Tuntries' call, Isolde came out of her sea of thought. He may have been part of something dangerous. Doga was most likely part of the darkness of the Azura Empire. If she carelessly got involved, Isolde might be erased. Page 170 580. What's the matter? Being asked from the front brought her back to reality. Nothing. Isolde once more looked at Doga. Please marry me. He said that. Without a doubt. He remained silent after that, but she shouldn't have misheard. Doga's manner was impressive. Walking in from the front door with flowers in hand and proposing right off the bat. Isolde would have preferred something slightly more romantic. But if you think about it, you could call that romantic. Giving flowers in front of a group of people and proposing was added to Isolde's list of romantic confessions. Of course, not in front of a smelly dojo, but a beautiful fountain, at a luxurious party hall. But she decided to ignore that. She was ignoring all kinds of things. Perfect timing. A fellow member of the 7 Knights would match you perfectly. Yes. But, it's just. It was then that Isolde realized where they were. In the line of sight of the disciples. In any case, we should change the location. Doga, please follow me. Yes sir. Isolde began walking in the opposite direction. Page 171 580. She didn't take the flowers from his hands and for a second Doga looked somewhat sad but immediately began to follow Isolde. Page 172 580.
Get rejected, bitch.
Part 3. And so Doga
Get
was invited back
rejected.
to Isolde's estate. He was sitting huddled up on a sofa that was creaking under his weight. The bouquet was still on his lap. Opposite
Goodbye,
him,
Doga.
Isolde was sitting
Goodbye.
dignified. She didn't give
Time
off
for
any sort of aura nor
depression.
did her face reveal her emotions. It gave the illusion that she was feeling nothing at all. Tuntries wasn't around. He had left them at the
I want
entrance to prepare tea.
spice. I want
And
spice.
in the meantime, Isolde
Give me
was carefully
spice.
observing Doga's face. In the face of her gaze, Doga put on a serious expression. Because he was trembling slightly, it was obvious that he was nervous. But what Isolde was looking at wasn't that, it was his face. His simplistic face. She just wasn't fond of it. She could try to ignore it, but it just wasn't her preference. Honestly, she thought that maybe one of the previous 5 might have been better. They were all similarly high-spec with handsome faces. They were all much more fantastic. But the next royal family member to come through might be below Doga. There was also the previous discussion with her brother. This was something she had to decide. Page 173 580. In any case, who would have thought you were royalty? As Isolde said that with a sigh, Doga looked puzzled. I ain't royalty. Were you adopted? She asked that to find out if he was hiding his status as royalty. I was born in a small village in the Donati province and have always been a gatekeeper. Me pops was a soldier of the village and... But what came out from Doga's mouth was a story of rising up
Me
from a
Bob's
decidedly poor
was a soldier of
No,
the
he might not have been poor.
village.
Isolde had already somewhat heard the story, but when he got to the part about his sister's wedding, he started crying, which caused Isolde to start crying too. And so, after I heard you were getting married, I thought, before that, I should let you know how I felt. But this basically meant that he was someone completely unrelated. He had nothing to do with the royalty introduced by Ariel. And so Isolde decided to refuse him. It was a slight shame, but she had to uphold the dignity imparted through Ariel's introduction of the suitors. A shame? Why? It was then she questioned her own thoughts. But she immediately reached a conclusion. He was honest, diligent, and wholehearted. Page 174-580. From what she had heard from him just now, he didn't have any kind of fetish that would make you draw away. He had the strength of a North Emperor, and as a member of the 7 Knights his wage was secure. He liked to drink, but it didn't make him violent, nor did he get involved in showy gatherings. Only his face was no good. It wasn't that it was bad, it just didn't fit with Isolde's preferences. Seeing Isolde's complex look, Doga spoke up as if resolving himself. Ever since I first saw you, I thought you were as pretty as a flower.
But then
and,
she saw
I had
his
always loved
dick.
you. Doga said that and once more pushed the bouquet towards
And
Isolde.
then all the
Is that right?
preferences
From when
went
we first met,
away.
Isolde's vision was filled with flowers. Deep blue flowers. She didn't know their name, but they were beautiful flowers. Being compared to these flowers caused her heart to flutter a little. Yes, sir. If Isolde recalled correctly, their first meeting was a battle. To decide the matter of Ariel's guard, the time when she fought Doga. To say that it was then that it started. Thinking back, he had always been somewhat kind to her. He always had faith in her. Page 175-580. He wouldn't take her weapon when she entered Ariel's room. Of course, it was
If it
also
ended
because they
like
were both
that,
members
it'd
of
be
the 7
10
Knights.
out of 10.
But that wasn't all there was to it. Thinking like that, Doga's face looked about 20% better to her. It really wasn't that he looked bad. Looking at it from a different angle, he had a certain charm. You normally wouldn't see it because of his helmet anyway. Or so, Isolde thought. No. Isolde shook her head. I'm terribly sorry, but it has already been decided that I would marry royalty at Ariel's introduction. Right, if she was to choose Doga here, it would disgrace Ariel. Isolde was a knight. Her loyalty may not be absolute and unwavering, but she had still sworn it to Ariel. To disgrace the name of her lord is something she mustn't do. You are also Her Majesty's knight, you wouldn't go against her will, would you? Yes, sir. Doga looked somewhat troubled. Just as Isolde said, Doga was also a knight. Doga was loyal. It was precisely because he was not royalty he had gained Ariel's faith and been made gatekeeper. He could not do anything that might betray Ariel's trust. Then if you would please go home. Yes, sir. Page 176-580. She had thought that Doga would try to resist, but he easily stood up and turned his back to Isolde. Quite easily. He even looked somewhat triumphant. It was as if he knew he would reject it from the start and was simply relieved that he had said it. It was a respectable position to take, but it was also somewhat disappointing. Isolde sighed and looked at the table. There sat a single flower petal. Not the bouquet. He had taken that with him. I should have at least taken the flowers from him. Isolde muttered that to herself with the petal between her fingers. Later that day she turned down the royal that came to meet her. Page 177-580.
The spice is real.
Isolde was in the training grounds. One of her duties was to be a sword instructor. While the soldiers were learning from watching the knights, she was thinking about what happened yesterday. The royal that had come to meet her, Fraser Kaikias Azura. His sexual desire was, as usual, repulsive, but he wasn't a dislikable person. But compared to Doga, his insincerity was readily apparent. But instead of refusing him outright, she should have at least told him to wait before she made her decision. In any case, only 2 were left. She would have to screen each of them carefully and choose one. As she was thinking that, a messenger soldier approached her from
You
behind.
know what's gonna happen. Get
Her
back to
Majesty has issued an urgent
Doga.
summons for you. Isolde could guess what Ariel wanted to talk about. She had probably heard that Isolde had rejected them one after the other and intended to scold her. She was resigned to her fate. Isolde thought that she would have to apologize to Ariel. Understood. Thinking that, Isolde left the training grounds. She left behind the knights' rooms outside the training grounds in a cloud of dust. Page 178-580. Normally one would shower when leaving after training, but as the summons was urgent, something like that wouldn't be allowed. And so, she quickly headed towards the king's chambers. As she got close to the inner palace, she felt something was off. She noticed it was much busier than usual. Normally you would advance through the empty hallway devoid of both soldiers and knights, but today you could see soldiers busily walking about. Something probably happened. Isolde was thinking about it, but Her Majesty's summons was the priority. Without hearing anything in particular, Isolde headed towards the king's chambers. And so, she arrived before the king's chamber. In front of the extravagant door, Isolde furrowed her brow. The person who should have been standing there was missing. The single man with the stone-like frame in his golden armor. The man who would never move from his post in front of Ariel's room, the Azura Empire's strongest gatekeeper, Doga. He wasn't anywhere in sight. As if in his stead, standing in front of the door in formation were the palace knights. All of whom had weapons strapped to their waists. It was an imposing sight. In addition, they all held themselves like experts. There were also many lower-level noble knights that normally wouldn't be allowed this far into the palace. They were most likely Sylvester's men. They did not fear their rear, each taking optimal movement. Lord Ifrit. Page 179-580. It was then she saw the figure of a certain person. The man in charge of the guard of the castle, the king's rampart Sylvester Ifrit. Well, if it isn't Isolde. You got here quite fast. Just what is going on here? Hearing that, Sylvester had quite a difficult face. As if he was questioning how he should explain it. Several seconds later, he shrugged his shoulders and said this. Her Majesty calls for you. As if to say that everything would be explained inside. Isolde gave up upon hearing that explanation and knocked on the door. Isolde Cruel, reporting in. You may enter. Ariel's voice was the same as always. Contrary to the bustle outside, her voice was unusually calm. Please excuse me. Isolde opened the door and entered. What she saw before her was a strange sight. Ariel sitting at her desk, performing her duties. Luke standing beside her, arms crossed, looking worn out. An imperial maid standing grim-faced and armed. And Doga. Doga, who was rarely ever seen in Her Majesty's room, was standing there. Page 180-580. In one hand he held his golden helmet and in the other, a slightly withered bouquet. Good work, Isolde. You arrived rather quickly. I was in the training grounds. But just what has happened here?
He's still holding the bouquet, the fucking guy, bro.
What? Isolde looked at Doga. He looked serious. It didn't seem like he was doing this as a joke. So what exactly does this mean? Well then,
I lost track of what chapter it is.
Doga, if you could explain it one more time. Ariel said that and looked at Doga. Doga nodded and began to speak. Isolde said that she couldn't marry a knight of Ariel-sama. A single sentence. With that, Isolde could guess the reason she was called here. That's not it? So as to not shame your Majesty's name, a knight of Her Majesty, you wouldn't go against her will is all I said. Quiet, listen until the end. In response to Ariel's calm voice, Isolde subsided. But Isolde's thoughts were not calm. Page 181-580. Depending on the flow of the conversation, she could be accused of instigating revolt in Doga. No, judging by the clamor outside, it wouldn't be strange if that was already the case. Although she didn't have such intentions. Doga. Unbeknownst to what Isolde was thinking. In response to Ariel's cue, with some difficulty, Doga continued. I thought really hard. About how I promised my dad that I would protect my sister. Ariel said that protecting the country and protecting my sister were the same thing. And Ariel-sama is the queen, so protecting her is protecting the country. But my sister said that I had protected her plenty already. There was nothing to think about, this time I would protect what I loved. I like Ariel-sama. I like this country. I want to protect them. But my feeling for Isolde are much more special. So I'll quit as Ariel's knight. And after that, I'll protect Isolde. After he said that, he put his golden helmet back on his head, and once more he held the flowers out to Isolde. Isolde's eyes were filled with slightly withered deep blue flowers. The same bouquet from yesterday. That's what he says.
Reject him.
What are you going to do, Isolde?
Reject.
Page 182-580.
I'm sorry, you're not my type.
I don't know what kind of conditions you have put out, but he has chosen you over the 7 knights of Azura. It's more than a woman deserves. What will you do? Those words. It seemed she wasn't called he to be reproached for inciting rebellion in Doga. And on top of that, she was being asked how she would respond to him. But, the men that your Majesty had introduced. Forget about that group. Alarm bells had begun ringing in her heart. Far greater than when she faced the fighting god in the Bihyrule Empire. She felt like she would collapse on the spot. In actual fact, her face was bright red. It was then she remembered the story of the first water god. The princess that threw everything away to be with the water god. With yesterday's conversation, she knew that Doga didn't have much to his name. His strength, large build, and few family members. And his position as a member of the 7 knights. But he no longer even had that much. He threw away his position and even his own family to choose Isolde. With yesterday's conversation, thinking about it carefully, she was somewhat hasty. Doga said that Isolde was worth more to him than anything.
Reject like the bitch you are, Isolde. Reject.
183-580. Even after he had thrown away that which he held closest to him, he still didn't demand that she become his. Just like the princess from the story.
Reject.
In the whole world, the only person who loved her that much, might just be Doga. Just what was there to be dissatisfied with? His face was
Imagine a child of a water god and a North
Before she
Emperor.
realized,
That
Isolde had
should
taken
be
the flowers.
useful against
The large
Lapras,
blue bouquet.
or
The
it
slightly
could be
withered flowers seemed as
useful
if they were Isolde's symbol.
for
Even if the flowers wilted, Doga was still sure to love him.
Itogami.
In the end, a flower's beauty was but a fleeting thing. I may not have much, but I'll be in your care from now on. Yes, sir. Doga had a bright smile on his face while applause burst out from the surroundings. Page 184-580. Part 5. The proposal in the king's chambers became well known even among ordinary soldiers. Doga's former co-workers shed tears of joy, and those who idolized Isolde and wanted to make her theirs shed
Not a
tears into
good
their pillows.
story. Not a
Doga
good
retired from his
story.
position
It
as a member
should
of the
have
7
ended
knights and became
differently.
Isolde's husband.
It should have
He
ended
was no longer Doga of
differently.
the 7
It
knights,
should have
but
ended
Doga
with
the
a
house husband.
rejection.
You said that you would retire as my knight, but Isolde is also a knight of this country. She is quite strong, but if I were to die, the country would fall into disarray, and she might very well be assassinated. Of course, you said that you would protect her. Nor do I have any intention of dying. In any case, how about it? Why don't you protect Isolde while protecting me? But due to Ariel's persuasion, it was decided that he would keep his post. There was no way Ariel would allow the North Emperor Doga to escape from her grasp. Of course, as punishment for the disturbance he had caused in front of the king's chamber, he was assigned no small amount of manual labor. 2 members of the 7 knights of Azura getting married was an excellent outcome for Ariel. The members of the royal family that she had called out to were but a trivial matter. Due to his marriage, the time Doga spent guarding the king's chambers was greatly decreased. He would return home
Why
at a
can't he be
predetermined time each
happy,
night,
man?
and when Isolde was
No,
sent
no,
away
no,
on
no,
duty,
no, no.
he would certainly follow.
I meant like
As a
this.
result, Isolde's
Here's how
position
the
shifted.
story should have turned out. Don't support Fortnite. I swear. Stop. No, stop. You can play Fortnite all you want. Don't give them money. Freaking hell. Anyway, what I'm saying is that should have rejected. And then Doga pulls his pants down. She sees his dick. Impressive. Then she accepts.
To an exclusive guard for Ariel, but that's another story.
That
The
is
awkward Doga had
how
been
the
accepted by
story
Isolde.
should
Page
have
185,
gone.
580. Until they were married, they spent that time getting to know each other as friends, and it wasn't until about a year later that the two were officially married. During that time, a rumor
Because
started that
this
Isolde
entire
truly didn't
time,
love Doga
like
after
she was
all.
complaining, it's like, Doga's just not my type. Doga's face, it's not. No. He's just not my type, you know. He doesn't look that good, yeah. But then,
Because within the royal palace, during that time, Isolde's treatment of Doga was just as cold
she
as usual.
sees the D and
But after
says,
Isolde
"Nice,
accidentally referred to Doga as darling in
exactly."
front of the soldiers and turned bright red while quickly correcting himself,
Impressive.
that rumor soon vanished. Surely, when the two were alone, they were as close as a couple could be. Point 1. And so, the two were married. Page 186 580. Let's make an automaton. Page 187 580. Chapter 10. The Day the Doll Walked, first part.
Ooh. Shit, that looks like a good part. Fuck. I'll say that for later. Oh my gosh, bro. We powered through. We are a third of the way through Redundancy. We are a third of the way through. This story is kind of long, yay. We are a third of the way through. As for the next stream, I'm not sure if I'll be streaming again tomorrow, but I definitely will be streaming on Tuesday, but not for Mushoku Tensei. It will be for... It will be for the most epic of tales, the most epic gameplay you will ever see. I will be playing Genshin Impact 3.0 on Tuesday. Once not Tetris, gosh dang, they might as well put a Tetris minigame in there. I will be playing Genshin Impact 3.0. The story is ready. I am ready to start the Archon quests immediately. AR rank 59. The Yoimiya main. I will be summoning for the new unit just to get the new... I am mainly simping for... Hold up. Let me get out the... Genshin Impact. She may be a 4-star, but I don't care. I want her, and I will summon for her. I don't care if I get her for free. I will get her C6, I swear. With my 30 summons, I will pull her 6 more times. I will get full constellation. It will be mine. Oh yeah, and Tanari as well. Like, hopefully I get Tanari, but I don't care too much. Wait, I'm in the way. You can't see him. You can't see him all that well. Meh. Meh. There you go. Meh. There you go. As you can see, you got Tanari here. You got Kole. I'll be summoning for both. And yeah, it'll be great. It'll be a great and fun time. So Tuesday, 8 p.m. It will be happening. 8 p.m. Pacific time. I will be playing that game. All right. Until then, I will see you all later. I'm going to go work on that video now. Peace out, boys.